Hey everyone. That was awkward. That was awkward. That should have been a smoother transition. But yeah, hi, hello everyone. Welcome to today's stream. Today is gonna be another one of those sort of video essay, like live video essay streams and stuff like that. Because the last stream that we did, we finished off with talking about the whole Chris Stuckman controversy and stuff like that. Um, and I've seen that the controversy has gotten more complex, a little bit greater, a little bit weirder, to be honest, as it's gone on. And I think I'll do what I want to do for this stream is I kind of want to explore the evolution of film review because film reviews, especially like in the 70s, we're gonna start in the well, not in the 70s, but we're gonna start with Pauline Kael. And if you know who Pauline Kael is, we're taking it back to some, probably one of the most celebrated film critics of all time. Um, and I think the reason why I want to do this is because like, especially now, I hope I see a lot of you guys have seen what Disney takes away, Looper and The Last Jedi, and I'm really stoked about that. But I worked on that video over the last week, and while I was working on it, I kept asking myself, like, what? Because I'm seeing a lot of these controversies. So I'm asking myself, like, what are people looking for in a review? Like, what do they value? What's the sort of approach that most people are looking for? Because I think that's changed, and I think the internet has definitely kind of changed the way that people talk about movies, whether it be through, you know, academic spaces with the sort of rise of video essays and stuff, and also just through the more casual lens, because back in the day, there was a higher barrier to entry, right? Like you had to have some sort of degree, you have to like be able to write, and you have to be on these newspapers. Nowadays, I just started up this YouTube channel, whatever, dude. I'm just gonna start reviewing movies now. Like that's just that's the way it works. Like there is no barrier to entry as long as you have like a camera and a YouTube account. Like you're reviewing movies, or if you got a letterbox, there's a lot of people who take their letterbox reviews very seriously, and it's definitely something that's a lot more democratized now, and I think for the better, frankly, because like one of the limitations I think of the sort of older ways of film review and stuff like that is that it sort of created a canon, right? Like a living canon. And I mean, don't get me wrong, this still happens now. It's just that like the canon of who are the relevant film voices today, right now, that used to be a conversation that seemed to belong almost entirely to journalists, to people who wrote professionally or academically and stuff. And I think that as film criticism has become democratized, you know, now everybody gets to decide who the current filmmakers worth discussing, and worth looking forward to, who they are and stuff. And I think that's overall better. But I also think that, kind of like with much, with a lot of other things, because this is not too different from like what happens with independent movies, or independent musicians who are trying to get their stuff out on TikTok, where it's like what happens is the most like middle of the road, generally agreeable, least common least offensive, least challenging sort of um voices are the ones that end up doing well. And I think we definitely kind of saw that in the early 2010s, in the sort of immediate kind of like post that guy with the glasses, when their popularity started to wane, like when you started to get your Chris Stuckmans and your Jeremy Johns and stuff like that, uh Christian Harloff, the rise of Collider. Once that sort of became the culture for a while, I think that sort of changed the way people talked about cinema, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. The way we have changed, the way the discussion of cinema has evolved over the years, for better, and for worse, and ultimately, I guess I just want to know, like, what are people like? What is good criticism, and what do people tend to value? So, um, I wanted to start off with Pauline Kael, but unfortunately, a lot of her reviews have been put behind a paywall, or have been very cut down, specifically because they're now in books instead of out in newspapers. So I wanted to start off with a heavy hitter. We're gonna start off with Pauline Kael's review of Network, and it's called a Hot Air. In Network, Patty Chayefsky utilizes no blitzes you with one idea. Hold on, let me go ahead and zoom in here, man. My old man eyes just do not they do not fucking fare well as he used to. Okay, blitzes you with one idea after another. The ideas don't go together, but who knows which of them he believes anyways. He's like a village crazy bellowing at you. But okay, I'm not gonna say that. Let's just say BLM complaints, revolutionaries are taking over, women are taking over. He's got the New York City hatreds, and ranting makes him feel alive. There is something funny in this kind of rant. It was funny in Fred Wiseman's Welfare too. With the number of things that are going wrong in the city, it's a bottomless comedy to see people pinning their rage on some one object, person, or group, or a pet collection of them. Cab drivers used to get it off on Mayor Lindsay, liberals on the moon landings, and now Chayefsky getting it off on television. Television, he says, is turning us into morons and humanoids. People have lost the ability to love. Who? Him? Oh no. The 1970s fucking writing here. The African Americans, the revolutionaries, and the power hungry executives at UBS Network named Diana Christensen, played by Faye Dunaway. In Chayefsky's 1958 movie The Goddess, the Marilyn Monroe type heroine, Kim Stanley, sought movie stardom, fame, and adulation in order to compensate for her inability to love. This empty girl was supposed to symbolize our dreams. Moviegoers were his morons then. Chayefsky said in 1958 that his heroine represents an entire generation that came through the Depression with nothing left but a hope for comfort and security. Their tragedy lies in that they never learned to love either their fellow humans or whatever God they have. God and love come together in this 1959 play, The Tenth Man. In his 1959 play, The Tenth Man, which ended with an old man saying of the hero whose demon of lovelessness has been exorcised, he still doesn't believe in God. He simply wants to love. And when you stop and think about it, gentlemen, is there any difference? This mushy amalgam of God and love is Chayefsky's faith. And if you don't share it, you're tragic. The new goddess, the unprincipled career girl Diane Christensen, is explained in Network in these terms. She's television's generation. She learned life from Bugs Bunny. The only reality she knows comes to her over the TV set. What Chayefsky is really complaining about is what barroom philosophers have always complained about: the soulless worshippers at false shrines, the younger generation. I mean, like right off the bat, she's able to, without really talking about the plot, without talking about the acting, without talking about any of the sort of aesthetics or any of the surface level or aspects of the film itself, she's able to very accurately portray in our heads an idea of the sort of attitude, the energy of this movie. And I mean, I think it's fair. I think she's not as fan of a biggest fan of Network as I am, but I don't disagree with what she's saying. Like this movie does kind of feel like it comes from a very sort of everyman rage that may or may not even be well targeted at the right people or the right problems and stuff. But I do believe that she isn't coming at it really from a sort of invalidative sort of place. I don't think she's trying to say that because these are sort of familiar complaints and stuff, that she is minimizing them. I think she understands that there is this sort of attitude out in the zeitgeist, and I think that she understands this is what this movie is going for. But I think what's really more important to sort of lay out here is just how expertly Pauline Kael is giving us the vibe, the idea, without even mentioning much at all about the movie itself, except maybe quoting a line here or there. By the way, I think it's interesting that she was able to quote that line from the movie. Like, did she it's surprising. Like when I see that in reviews, I ask myself, like, did they just memorize it? Did it stick with them that much, or did they write it down? Because like back then, you just have to write it down in theaters and shit. That could have been like a pain in the ass there. But okay, anyways, let's continue. In Chayefsky's last film, The Hospital, 1971, the 50th Jewish chief of medicine, played by George C. Scott, has lost his potency, fails at suicide, and is disappointed in his children. He blows off steam about what's wrong with the society, but ridicules the Puerto Rican community action groups who march on the hospital. After an affair with a young wasp, who urges him to leave with her. He decides that somebody has to be decent and responsible, and so with his potency restored, he stays to make his stand for sanity. Youth youth baiting played a strong part in the hospital, but Chayefsky's slapstick exaggeration of the chaos in a big city institution had so much silly, likable crackpot verve that the diatribes against the disrespectful younger generation should be shrugged aside. Network, however, is all baiting youth. Baiting or hating? Baiting. Okay. TV, the culture, the universe, the UBS network has taken over. The UBS network has been taken over by a conglomerate, and Howard Beale, played by Peter Finch, a veteran anchorman whose ratings have slipped, is given 2 weeks' notice by executives who want to jazz up the news and to make it more entertaining. Angry at being dumped. See, like we're like about 3 or 4 paragraphs in, and we're just getting to what the movie's about. That's fucking wild to me. Let me see. Angry at being dumped, Beale goes out of control in his blast on the air about this demented slaughterhouse of a world we live in. Blast sprinkled with cuss words accomplish what his restrained behavior couldn't. His ratings go up. His best friend, head of the news division, the 50-ish hero, Max Schumacher, played by William Holden, who is Patty Chayefsky in disguise and the unimpeachable Ed Murrow, loses his fight to keep the news independent out. The chief of operations, played by Robert Duvall, fires him uh, and turns and turns the news division over to Diana Christensen, the vice president in charge of programming. So when Beale begins to have visions, either he's having a breakdown or he's in a state of religious exaltation, and is advertised as the mad prophet of the airwaves. Schumacher is on the sidelines and has nothing to do but hang around with Diana Christensen, with whom he has an affair, and denounce her, television, and us soulless masses. The Mad Prophet and the Sane Prophet both delivered okay, I think she's just okay. So into the next one, she's actually getting back to the criticisms of the movie. The Central Gaga Network. How is the Central Gaga Network? Howard Beale comes to the first man killed. Comes okay. I don't want to. I mean, it's an old ass movie, right? But it's a hell of an ending, so I don't want to. I don't want to say that out loud. But let's see. Even if it hadn't been satire, it doesn't have to be fair to be funny. See, I like that sort of stuff. That sort of nuance take and shit. Network and the network script, Chayefsky isn't writing a farce. He's telling us a thing or two, and he writes directly to the audience. He soapboxes. He hardly bothers with the characters. The movie is a ventriloquial harangue. He thrashes around in messianic god love booziness, driving each. By the way, I just speak. I don't know why, but like, call me an asshole if you want. But that reminded me of Bukowski. I think he died like 30, 40 years ago. I think in the 80s. So about 40 years ago this week. Yeah. Um. Let me see. That's so. Yeah. She's just kind of going on here about how like up his own ass Chayefsky seems to her, which is wild. It's wild that someone is saying that of Chayefsky, especially at the time when his work came out. Um, but yeah, she's gonna get into the direction here. The director, Sidney Lumet, keeps the soliloquies going at a machine gun pace. The movie might have been modeled on the earlier talk binge, Billy Wilder's 1, 2, 3. Lumet is right. It's best not to let the word sink in. With Schumacher experiencing a winter passion and discussing his primal doubts, you have to hurdle through to the next crisis. You know what? That's a very good take. Like, I think if those things, like, there is like such a theatrical quality to those lines and to the way they talk that I think if he put too much of a light on it, it would have it would have sort of belabored all the point a lot, in my opinion. The film looks negligently made. The lighting bleaches the actors' faces like color TV that needs tuning, and the New York views outside the office and apartment windows feel like blown up photographs. That's not, you know what? I don't even think that's like unintentional. I don't think that's like a mistake, though. I think that's a very intentional choice because it's a very unromantic movie, you know? Let me see. The timing in most of these scenes is so careless that you may be aware of the laugh lines you're not responding to. And there's a confusing cut from Diana and Schumacher planning to go to bed together to Howard Beale in bed by himself. Network even fails to show the executives at meetings getting carried away by the infectiousness of Diana Christensen's idea, getting high on power, but Lumet keeps it all moving. Yeah. Okay. So it seems like they're not even going to get to finish that paragraph. But yeah, like I think I get the idea here. And this is sort of the film criticism that I really value, that I really appreciate. Where like it is it does seem like she didn't like the movie. Let's be real here. And she is sort of going in on it a lot. But I think she's also very accurately portraying what this movie is like to her, and why the movie made her feel the way that it did. I think that's what really for me is what I'm looking for. Like when I was doing the when I'm sort of thinking about where I'm going with the channel, is to sort of tackle this issue like head on, like um what exactly like speaks to me, and why I think and how to sort of bring that out to people. So yeah, like this sort of writing where it's a lot less about like breaking down the plot to its elements and stuff like that, because like there's a time and place for that. Like I think that's good. I think that's a good approach, and I think that's out there, and I do that myself, and sometimes in my own work. But like I think that's just like one way of going about it. Movies are experiential. They're these sort of all-encompassing things. It's not just one thing or another. It's not just the acting, it's not just the cinematography, it's not just the script, it's not just the editing. It's the amalgamation of it. So I think for me, um what really tells me about a movie is how someone describes how all those things work together for them, and how all those things communicate a feeling, an idea, or something. And I think that's what Pauline Kael, and the Eberts and the Siskel's, even like the Ropers and stuff. I would go to say like up to like the late 2000s, like just when the internet started to take in, like we had all these old school film critics who just really brought this style of writing, this approach to it, that I really like. I want to read a little bit from her review of Carrie, because she apparently liked it. She gave it at least it's a fresh tomato here on Rotten Tomatoes. Oh hell yes, Smirking Gun. You know what? I'll check out your content in a bit then. Yeah, yeah. Like good shit, dude. Yeah, I'll check out your stuff on stream in a little bit here. But yeah, I wanna read on her review for Carrie here, which is a lot more positive. On her review is called The Curse. Um let me zoom in a little bit here, because again I got old man vision now. Carrie is a terrifyingly lyrical thriller. And it is actually, like, there is something about the way the camera work. It sort of floats throughout the scenes that is very dreamlike, and very lyrical. I agree with that take. I think Brian De Palma just like he's one of those directors who he like, some directors talk with the camera, some guys some guys sing with the camera, and I think that's Brian De Palma. I think he really, really is able to be super expressive with the way that he shoots his movies. Brian De Palma has mastered a teasing style, a perverse mixture of comedy and horror and tension, like that of Hitchcock or Polanski, but with a lulling sensuousness. He builds our apprehensions, laboriously softening us for the kill. You know you're being manipulated, but he works in such a literal way and with so much candor that you have the pleasure of observing how he affects your susceptibilities, even while you're going into shock. Scary and funny must be the greatest combination for popular entertainment. Dude, I agree, by the way. Like, comedy and horror are like the perfect like two genres to mix together, in my opinion. Where was I here? Let's see. Candor entertain. Okay. Anything. All right. Anything and funny is, of course, great, even funny. Oh, okay, I don't get this. All right, this is just a weirdly constructed sentence. I'll try to put it together here. Scary and funny must be the greatest combination for popular entertainment. Anything and funny is, of course, great, even funny and funny. Okay, I see what she's saying. But we come out of movies like Carrie as we did out of Jaws, laughing at our own childishness. It's like watching our team win a ball game. We're almost embarrassed at how bracing it is. This little gothic in a high school setting, it has a script by Lawrence D. Cohen taken from Stephen King's unassuming Potboiler about a miserable, repressed high school senior, the daughter of a fanatically religious woman who has never been accepted by the other kids. Carrie, played by Sissy Spacek, is so withdrawn that she's a slug. Her energy is released only telekinetically in small ways that people don't recognize. Objects have a habit of crashing when she's around. I like how they had to clarify that. At the beginning of the movie, she has her first period at 16 in the gym shower and doesn't know what's happened. She panics. She thinks she's bleeding to death. Her ignorance makes her a scapegoat for the other girls in the gym. Their ugly feelings about their own periods erupt. And like junior versions of Russ Meyer super vixens, they laugh hysterically and pelt her with tampons and sanitary napkins. The gym teacher penalizes them for their cruelty, and a few of them scheme to get even with Carrie. Their plan is to have her elected prom queen and then humiliate her directly, publicly. What we see, what we see is that they don't. What we see that they don't see is the depth of Carrie's desire to be accepted by them. Her joy at having Tommy, the most popular boy in class, ask her to the prom, and becoming prom queen transforms her. Her home life is so horrible that this is her first taste of feeling beautiful, and she's a radiant Cinderella. De Palma, a master sadist, prolongs her moments of happiness. He slows the action down to a trance while we wait for the trap to be sprung, knowing that it will unloose all her bottled up telekinetic anger. It's a beautiful plot, a teenage Cinderella's revenge. Carrie becomes the new trash archetype, and De Palma, who has the wickedest baroque sensibilities at large in American movies, points up to the archetypal aspects by parodying the movies that have formed it and outclassing them. Yeah, yeah, like you see, I think it's like a very evocative description of the movie, and again, I really enjoy how she starts off with like these sort of long, like descriptive introductions, and then she gets right into the meat of it. Um, and I think that's a very specific type of. I don't think it's an accident, by the way, that this is, on the New Yorker, because I think it's a very specific type of writing. I think it's the type of writing that didn't expect. Yeah, that's very true, right? Especially for Pauline Kael of all people. Well, to be fair, Pauline Kael did have like an appreciation of B movies and all that back in the day. But what was I saying? Uh yeah, like I think this is a type of writing that just it's very novelistic. I mean, it's partly because it was a New Yorker and it was, sort of a more, I guess, like academic audience and stuff. I think they expected that. But I think also this is just how movie people talk. Like this is just when people, like when normal people talk about movies, right? They usually talk about stories. Like I didn't like this, I didn't like that. I thought this actor was good, I thought this actor was bad. And I think like um, your average watch a couple movies a year at best, kind of film watcher. Um, it tends to be like a very surface level but descriptive and direct conversation. I think when people who have like a very deep, passionate conversation about like movies talk about movies, it's a lot more like this. It's a lot more about like what a movie is as opposed to what it's about. And I think that's like when I'm thinking about when I write my own stuff for my videos, like when I go about it, I think that's what I'm trying to do. And I think also like I'm just fascinated by well, let's put it this way. It's not so much something that I'm fascinated by. It's something that I'm fascinated by the fact that I don't see a lot of other people doing it very much. Where I think one of the things that I cut out of the video yesterday, and I cut this out because originally, first of all, it was I didn't intend that video for me to be half an hour long. I tried to cut it down as much as I could. But one of the stuff that some of the stuff that got cut out a lot was a couple of provocative jokes meant to sort of poke fun at the Mahler crowd and their fan base. I decided to take that out because A, I'm moving away from that sort of content, and B, I kind of want these videos to just be a little bit more welcoming than that. And one of the things that I said is that um to talk about movies the way that like a Mahler does, even if it is for like 6 hours, even if it is this long thing. It's very surface level because it never really gets at the sort of like the heart and soul of what movies are. It's a sort of like experiential art form. Ultimately relaying what the plot is like the most basic thing I think you can do when you're talking about a movie. So for me, what I'm more interested in and what I really want to do is I really want to break down like the other approach where it's like, the Mahler types, your average audience, they have expectations. They go into the movie. Does the movie meet those expectations? Yes, no, pass, fail. That's it, right? And that's valid. I mean, that's fine. That's how we all start out enjoying movies. But for me, and what I think is more interesting to think about and to discuss is like when I go into a movie, sure, I have my expectations. I have my idea of what I want this movie, what I think this movie's going to be, what I want it to be. A good example of that, by the way, is Love Lies Bleeding. Um, went into that movie. All I knew was that it was like a lesbian bodybuilder, like crime heist and stuff like that. I saw that. No, yeah, I saw that. It's so good that like his fan base is blowing up about it. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, like I went into that movie, right? And of course, like I went into it being like, okay, so I saw the trailer, I had an idea of what it was about. I thought it was gonna be this one thing, right? And it is that, like, it is that thing for a good 40 minutes, and then something happens, and then the entire rest of the movie is impossible to predict in like the most fun, rewarding way possible. Love Lies Bleeding is a fantastic movie, by the way, but the reason why I bring it up is because like the other approach that I think is more interesting and to talk about and to think about is one where like yeah, I have my expectations. I went into that movie with my expectations, but clearly Rose Glass had something on her mind. She had something else that she wanted to explore. Um and I thought what she had to say, what she had to explore was fucking amazing and awesome. Love Lies Bleeding is 2024 is off to a great start, guys. Straight up. But Love Lies Bleeding was a surprisingly amazing movie. And the reason why I enjoyed it so much was because, like, despite going in there thinking that it was going to be this very conventional thing, uh, it's something way more crazy, way more wild. It is the most unhinged, batshit, but lovely and very romantic story ever. And not ever, but like it's fucking great. And it feels so gargantuan when you watch it, like um I'll dig into that movie a little bit later, but what I'm saying is that um I like that movie because I saw what Rose Glass was doing. I recognized it, and I appreciate that. And I think that's the more interesting approach, right? Like when I did the Noah essay, honestly, I think Noah is like a pretty decent movie. I think it's like a 6 or 7 out of 10, to be honest. Um, at its peak, it's like an 8, but like those peaks are very rare. For the most part, it's a very 6 or 7 out of 10 movie. But when I dug into it, when I sort of watched it a few times and I paid really close attention to what the director was doing, even though it's not that great of a movie, it's not that great of a movie that I really appreciate and I really understand and that I really admire. And I think that's sort of a big difference between people who love movies as an art form and people who love movies as like a consumer product, is that even if I don't love Noah as a movie, I think what it does and what it's going for is fucking amazing and worth discussing and worth appreciating for, and something that is worth recommending. Uh, and I think that's what I'm a lot more interested in too. Like when it's something like Looper or The Last Jedi, two genuinely great movies, it's a totally different thing. But like for me, I like the challenge of trying to find the artistry in something that I'm not too crazy about. Same thing with Southland Tales. I'm doing to Bo is Afraid. What I did to Southland Tales this year, and I'm very excited to start working on that next month. But yeah, like I think that's a lot more interesting here. I have slightly altered my approach, general attitude at how I choose to discuss things, and I have been much more satisfied as a content creator. Yeah, you know what? Let's check out some of Smirking Guns content here. I'll see what you're all about. Whoa, oh, okay. Okay, I see what happened there. Give me a second here, guys. Uh, let's see. Oh yeah, no, I'm really excited to do that one, man. Like that one's gonna be a fun one. Um, let me see here. Let me do. Why do I share? Okay, and then Smirking Gun. Yeah, let's see what Smirking. Let's check out Smirking Gun's channel here. All right, Man in the High Castle. Man in the High. Okay, no, I was thinking about the Al Pacino show. Check out your most popular videos here. His Dark Materials turns to the Talking Dead, Witcher One. Oh, you do a lot of TV here. Let me see if I can find. All right, something a little bit more specific. A lot. Handmaid's Tale. What would you recommend? What do you recommend I check out, Smirking Gun? Let's start there. Um, yeah, let's start there. Let me know what video you think is best representative of your approach here. Okay, yeah, I can see you got a good taste in TV shows, man. This is a good selection right here. Dark is the Hulk video. Okay, let me see. Hulk. Oh, what? Holy shit. Oh, okay, cool. Hey, honestly, let me tell you something. I remember when Hulk came out. We're not gonna watch the whole thing here, but I see what you have to say about it. Okay, I'm gonna share you on the screen here.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Smirking Reviews. This is Rob here. And in an event, wow, already stumbling over my own words. That's how nervous I still am whenever I hit
Happens all
record
the
on
time,
one of
man.
these
I'm gonna
things.
go ahead and bounce forward here a
Um,
little bit.
and what is Hulk in the MCU? What has he always been in the MCU? What's he going to become once Marvel gets the rights back? All of that. And it led me back down to Ang Lee's 2003 film
Fucking fascinating
Hulk,
movie.
and how both Hulk and Incredible Hulk from 2008 both really didn't reach audiences the way that the filmmakers and the studio wanted. Now, Mark Ruffalo, I think, is great. I really do.
I agree, and honestly, like I think 2003's Hulk. God, I remember I remember I saw that movie. I remember I saw that fucking movie in theaters the weekend that it came out, and like I think like when I was at that age, I was just getting into like movies and like finding out about directors. Like I knew who like Ang Lee was because I looked into like his IMDb, like old school movie geek and shit like that. And like I just remember like walking out of that movie and just sort of being like, that wasn't like a great movie, but like I didn't hate it. And I think back then, like if a movie just had like interesting enough ideas, I would be a lot kinder to it than most. Well, I mean, to be honest, I think maybe that still is the case for me now. Um, but yeah, like this was such a fucking
I
fascinating
think
film.
that what they've given him, he has done the best that he can with. And I enjoy watching that Hulk. He's very entertaining. He's very what the masses want, what the average Joe and Jane six pack go to the theater for. Although recently, because they sidelined him for Infinity War and in Endgame, we had Hulk. So there wasn't really, there was no Hulk smashing going on really. And where we're headed with Hulk in the future, again, once Marvel gets the rights back to the character, I'm sure they're going to be doing some
Fast forward just
interesting
a little bit
things,
more
but
here.
how Hulk is and has been the most approved version of the Hulk is Hulk smash, no brain, stupid talk, punch Thor.
Okay.
That's not me. I try to come things from inside, in my brain, in my heart, how I feel. I'm less concerned about the filmmaking process and all that. And I know it, and I could sit here and talk about editing and producing and all that stuff. I focus more on writing and characters. And so, talking about this movie,
Here we go.
um, in order to do that, of course, it's me. So the storyteller in me is going to come out. So for me, I have to talk about like how I got into the Hulk and why I missed this. Like when it came to this movie, why me and most people have really overlooked and messed up in the way that it's not like globally important.
Sometimes I wonder, like, the problem with Hulk, and I think why the reason why a lot of people have trouble finding like, and I think even like Ang Lee. I think Ang Lee did about as good a job as somebody could be expected to, because Hulk is such a representative of like a single emotion, right? Of like anger, of yeah, rage and stuff. That it, you need to sort of infuse that with what rounds out movie character and a story and a theme and stuff. And I think like it's one thing to like, like the leftover season one, right? Like the leftover season one, Kevin is literally just like punching walls. He's like such an angry character throughout that entire first season. Totally understandable and stuff. But the problem is that it can become a little bit one note if and a little bit ridiculous if the needle doesn't really change, or if all the drama is sort of dependent on this one emotional outburst, and especially if you kind of blow it up to the operatic level of like the superhero universe, where like if he gets too mad, he'll turn green and stuff. I think it's like too much of everything pointed in one single direction. When I think like a movie, sorry, I'm trying to get center frame here. A movie needs to fill out its runtime with something that is consistently um changing and evolving and entertaining in different ways. I use my channel in one way as to fight my social anxiety, so I'm a little awkward in my content. Dude, live streams are different. Like I think like everybody's a little bit more awkward in live streams than they are in videos, bro. But I think you're doing fine. I'm just I don't want to I try. There's a lot of other stuff that I want to cover here, so I'm just trying to get to the meat of the review here. But no, I think you're doing fine in terms of like how you come across, man. 100%.
When this movie came out, I stopped collecting around 96, 97. So when the big comic book movies started coming out with like Blade,
I remember
Spider-Man
that, like the
1,
early days, man. Those
X-Men,
were interesting days.
they were awesome. They were awesome to me. Like I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. I might not be collecting comics, but we've been waiting for these movies, us comic fans, forever. And while there were some early stuff, the Spider-Man TV show, the Incredible Hulk TV show, the Captain America movie, there was an early Punisher with Dolph Lundgren, there were attempts at things. Nothing really felt like they really were hitting the comic books right. The technology wasn't there. People still, nerd culture hadn't become what it's become now. Even when Spider-Man and X-Men came out, nerds were still the nerd takeover hadn't happened. And the nerd takeover is a topic that we kind of get around because
By the way, I recommend, if that's something that you're interested in, I recommend checking out the podcast Download, DOWNLOWD. That whole podcast is an examination of like the rise of geek culture through the lens of AICN, Ain't It Cool News. Like if that's something you want to like, yeah, like that podcast, very thorough examination of that era, and like I think I think it's weird people who didn't live through the era of Ain't It Cool News, that era of the internet, the early sort of movie geek culture. Um, it was such a different anarchistic time, man. I mean, the internet back then was a lot more anarchic and stuff. Sounds good. I'll check it. No, yeah, it's a really good stream, a really good podcast. But yeah, discussions were way different back then too. Back then, it really was just like, yo, like, hey, like Hulk sucks. Like, yeah, what was up with those dogs? Like, that was about as deep as it got almost anywhere. You know, one undeniably good thing is just like I feel more people have have higher standards now than they did a while ago. Like I feel like these days we all know and choose to watch trash, right? Like we all just like me and my girlfriend's favorite trash is 90 Day Fiance. Like we know it's trash, we acknowledge it's trash, we enjoy it as trash. Whereas I feel like back in the day, people were really defensive, about maybe watching a 90 Day Fiance, but that was because the rest of their media diet wasn't these like highly well produced, usually very well made streaming shows, or at least that's what we watch. But yeah, I feel like people are a lot more aware about that aspect of what they watch.
That's a topic for another video. But boy, oh boy, has nerd culture become what it hated.
Yeah,
I feel like nerd
yeah,
culture has become the bullies now. We were the ones being bullied.
yeah. I'm trying to do earlier streams earlier in the day. Like I feel like I have a more mellow energy in the afternoons than I do later.
Put it simply, yeah, we were the ones being bullied, and now we've become the bullies. When I say we, I mean the royal we. I don't mean all of us. But in order to talk about that, you got to put everybody out there,
Yeah.
right? You got to kind of put it in as a whole. When how people look at it now, we become bullies. There's a huge bullying section of the fandoms that are just it's sickening. But around the time when I was like in my early to mid 20s, I started really thinking internally about and thinking more about writing. And when Fight Club came out in 1999, it changed like so much. It hit me in a place that I really never knew I wanted or needed. The dual personalities, multiple personalities, the different sides of someone. It spoke to me
I
because
feel that, man. Like I feel like Fight Club. There's those movies, dude. Like there's for me it was 2001: A Space Odyssey, Donnie Darko, and Magnolia. They're movies that like you watch and they just like they wake up this like third eye, that's like, oh, movies are this. They're not just like things to watch. They're something worth discussing and thinking about on the sort of like on so many different levels. Yeah, dude, like I to me, I think there's something so fascinating. It's so weird, right? It's so weird about that moment in our lives where we first watch those movies that set our minds on fire and put us on the path of like collecting criterion and having certain feelings about aspect ratios and having letterbox accounts. So like the first movies that got us there. I think in a lot of ways, every single like huge movie nerd, every movie geek, every cinephile, whether you're like the fucking the blockbuster guy or you're the weird boom B movie guy or you're the whatever type of like cinema niche your thing is. Like I think we're all just chasing the high in a weird way of that moment, like that moment where like we first watched Fight Club and it just blew our minds. I think we're always just trying to chase that feeling, and luckily, but this is why movies are better than drugs. Like there are movies that will like time every now and then just completely refill. You will eventually catch up to those dragons. Those dragons come out every couple of months, fortunately, with movies. Like I saw Dune Part 2 uh when it came out, and I was like, holy shit, this is next level. Like this is like the fucking amazing. Like this is a set the fucking bar very high. And then yesterday I watched fucking Love Lies Bleeding. Totally different type of movie. Completely different type of movie. But it also gave me that same feeling, that same like 5 out of 5. That was like um cinema taken to a different level, to a different place. Like that's what's. That's what's great. That's why sobriety is easy if you love movies, because like at least when you're giving up all this other stuff, the movies will continue to reward you with quality if you just keep giving them a chance, you know?
I don't even think I understood it even back then about the struggle to find oneself, one's true self, the different sides of us. And like I said, I don't think I was prepared for all of it. I don't think that I had figured out a way to talk
Oh yeah.
about the
Oh,
fight
dude,
and the
that's a good
struggle
one.
that was inside
That
me.
is a good one. That is a good fucking pick right there, bro.
Mostly because I was drowning all my emotions in alcohol.
Similar,
I was
buddy.
numbing
I've been there.
everything down, and I hid there for a long time. In the past 5 years of sobriety have really opened my mind up, and has really I have really been discovering myself and figuring out how
Honestly,
to
same here, dude. Same here. And
speak
by the
about
way, just
all
like
the
take a
different
second here.
sides of my
Congratulations on your sobriety, dude. That's fucking awesome. And keep on keeping on, dude, for real.
personality as I search and figure out ways to vocalize it and not just internalize it. And back when in 2003 when Hulk came out, I wanted basically what everybody else wanted. Hulk smash, break things, blah blah blah. And so I was as disappointed in as everybody else. There were moments in there I was like, that's right. All right. That's cool. But it was I wasn't appreciating how cerebral it was. And I hadn't read old Hulk books ever. I thought again that it was, and the reason that was is because I thought that they were without ever reading, with prejudging the Hulk books, I thought that they were all only about some green guy jumping around punching things.
Right.
And so when I got sober and I started recollecting comics as kind of a thing to put my back up against, something to focus on, a new addiction, really.
Yeah, no,
I started
that's something that's tricky, man. Like, because there's people in my life that are trying to give something up, trying to sober up from something, and I just tell them like, hey, just get a hobby, collect something. Like me, home media, dude. Like all the money that I used to spend on alcohol and other stuff, like now I'm just spending on Blu-rays and 4Ks, man. And that is a way. Here's the thing about here's the thing about what's so great about like buying Blu-rays and 4Ks is like you don't run out of them. Once you have them, they're basically there. Hey, Mikey, man, good to see you again. Let's continue on with this review.
devouring Hulk. Once I picked up some Hulk books, I started to see what Hulk was actually about. And I have like some really, like this is my oldest, oldest Hulk book I got. This is Hulk number 109. I have I run the gamut of Hulk books now. Um, that I've just been loving every minute of. And we're gonna get into more, but I'm gonna show off some of these comics real quick. Like, you want Hulk versus Thor, this is Hulk 255, classic Hulk Thor battle. But they weren't just about this guy punching things and the government trying to stop him.
Oh, what was this?
Most people, all they knew, like I said before, was the Hulk TV show with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. Rest in peace, Bill
Hold on,
Bixby.
guys. Speaking of home media, I got my upgraded Blu-ray linked into the Criterion Collection Blu-ray coming in the mail. Hell yeah, dude! Congratulations. Hell yeah. No, that is a good set. Those special features are good, and that transfer is absolutely gorgeous. Like
Um,
it was
I watched
pretty deep. Well, okay. Well, I heard the 4K is coming out this year too, though. So like, I'm pretty excited about that.
it. Um, the guy walking down the road with the sad music, the reporter chasing him, trying to find the Hulk who would come out and help people. And smash things. And that's, I think, most people's, memories of him. They have the little memory of the comic book green guy and the TV show. In fact, for a long time, I had a nickname and it stuck because I was kind of like Banner in the Hulk show. It always felt like I was the lonely walking dude, and the drifter was what I was called. Kind of, and it wasn't in a good way. It felt like I was that lonely guy who just was walking everywhere with a backpack. Some ways I still am that guy. He's slowly disappearing. And but I didn't know how to find myself. And that's the key to Hulk is Banner is a man trying to find himself. He's a broken man who was made even shattered into even more pieces because of what happened to him. And on in the early years, it was the scientist who got hit with trying to save Rick Jones, gets hit with a gamma bomb and suddenly becomes this green monster. And the government's chasing him and they want his power for their own. They want to figure out what he did and how can they weaponize it. And all that stuff in there. But internally, over the last 40-ish, 50 years, right? About 50 years now. Jeez. They've gotten to explore all these different levels of what's going on in Banner's mind. Whether it's the green guy who he's childlike. He's like how, a 2-year-old reacts to things. Punching, screaming, not knowing how to communicate. He's upset. He doesn't know how to calm down. It's all rage, it's all emotion. To Mr. Fix It, the Gray Hulk, Joe Fix It, who's they call smart.
I think it's interesting because I think that's something that comes with age a little bit. I think in general, as we get older, we get kinder. I think it's. I mean, I'm don't get me wrong. I think it happens. Sure, I think people become crueler as they get older. But I think for the most part, all of us, as we get older and we recognize our flaws, the flaws in the people we love, and stuff. I think we become very forgiving of other people. I I've never really told this story before. But we're talking story time here. This is a good God, fuck, like maybe a year and a half ago. This is a while ago. Um, Me and my girlfriend were watching TV in the living room, and my dog was in the backyard, and my dog starts barking. And it's the kind of it was a kind of bark. My dog's, you guys have heard her. She's a barking ass dog. She likes to bark a lot. But it was not the type of fucking bark that we've ever heard before. Um, and so yeah, like Daria is like barking up a storm, and my girlfriend's like, "Hey, what's going on out there?" And I'm like, "She's just barking. Let her be." We're watching TV, and then all of a sudden she turns around, she starts screaming, and I look up, I look out the window, and there's just this skinny looking like guy. He looks like he's like 22, 23. He looks like high and drunk as fuck, but like he's in my backyard, and and he's looking right at us, So I tell my girlfriend, like, take he opens the fucking door. My dog rushes in, and I'm like, go to the fucking room. And this dude, like, he starts walking towards me, and I'm in the kitchen. I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Like, what are you doing? Like, what is going on, man? What is this? And the guy is like not even saying a fucking thing. He's not even saying anything. He's just like walking at me, dude, like a fucking looking like Jason, actually, like in a weird way. Like he wasn't armed or nothing, but he was just walking towards me. And this guy, like, I'm a decently big dude, but this dude was like a skinny little fucking twerp. And I was just like, fuck, like this is like fight or flight, because he was literally coming at me. All I kept thinking about was like, what's gonna happen? I don't want nothing to happen to my girlfriend. I want nothing to happen to my dog. So like, I just reach out, and I just put my arms around his throat, and I start choking him. And he's like a skinny dude, so like it didn't take a lot of time. It didn't take all that much force on my end. I choke him. I get him to the ground, and he passes out, and I'm like, oh, okay, so he's breathing, you know. Uh, and but are you built? You built for this shit like Carrie July. I'm not built like a brick. No, unfortunately, I've eaten too many burritos for that. But I work with metal guys. All right, like I use my muscles a little more than I think most tradesmen tend to. But like yeah, so like I choked him, and I got him down to the ground. And I call my girlfriend, and I'm just like looking at this kid basically, like he looks like I said, like he's in his early 20s, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, kid? Like what? And it's so weird, like in an instant, like I look at him, and I see myself in that guy. Hey, Lucifer, how you doing, man? Like I see all the times that I've done stupid shit like this when I was drunk, when I was so drunk I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and like I literally did, like I had no hatred. I did not fear this guy or nothing like that. Hope life is, it is, man, it is, thankfully, and I hope life's treating you and everybody else in the comments too, man. Thank you for saying that. But yeah, dude, like I saw this kid, and like I was just like, damn, man, like I've been there, like I've been this kid before. Like I've done like I I've never done anything crazy like that, but like I've fucking overstepped shit. Like I've definitely fucking like been a fuck up like that. And I looked at him, and just like weird, just a weird amount of like kid, like he came to like not too long after, and he was like, where the fuck am I? Was like he clearly didn't know what the fuck he was doing. And at that point the cops were on their way. So I was like, dude, you want a fucking glass of water? Like, yeah, please. Like, you just fucking sit there. Don't fucking get up, dude. But like, here, get some water. And I'm just like, it's just so weird because like I'm pissed at this fucking kid because like I literally like listen, I didn't know this guy was armed. I didn't know any of that for like a brief second. I had to seriously consider, am I gonna have to take this dude's life to protect myself? Because I literally did not know, you know? And I was upset at this dude for even putting me in that situation, or even had to think those thoughts, or like anything like that. But like at the same time, like I really was like, damn, dude, like I can't even be too mad at you because I've been this level of stupid before too. And I literally, like, when the cops came, I didn't even press charges. I'm like, just get him out of here, whatever, dude. Good luck and shit. And I think like that's just like that's a very dramatic example. Let's be real. It's a very dramatic thing. But like I think we've all had our moments, like when we reach an age where like where we just like see someone who's being a total fucking asshole, douchebag, whatever, and like you want, and before you could even start conjuring up the level like hatred or anger, you just see yourself in them too much, and instead, even though you have every right to be angry at this person, you're just like, man, fucking dumbass, dude, like get up, man, like just more like a disappointing frustration, and also just like a desire, because like in that moment, right? In that moment, like I'm like, damn, like I've been knocked out before, like all this shit, like, and just like I had every reason to like um attack this guy and shit, what am I trying to get out here? Like I think like what I'm trying to say here is just that, like, it's weird how as you get older, like you get softer. Like life tends to like make you more empathetic and shit. And yeah. No, dude, no, yeah, it was something else, dude. The difference between a one-off crosser and a habitual, like, no, yeah, it's different when it's like a habitual thing. I don't know if it was a habitual thing for this guy, but I know for sure I've had my fucking drunk episodes where I was too fucking like oblivious and shit, and I did some stupid shit, and like in that moment, like you just let it go, and it's weird how that like transfers to. Okay, I think what I was trying to say earlier is this, right? Like I saw that kid, and then I'm like, it's weird. Like I saw him, and then like I looked at myself, like I looked at myself, and I'm like, I used to be you, now I'm me. Now I'm not that, you know. And like all I could think was like, I'm not gonna press charges because I don't want to fuck up your ability to become me. I don't want to fuck up your ability to learn from this, to be better, or any of that shit. Also, fuck you for fucking putting me in this situation, man. Holy crap. Comment this another reason I love it. Yeah, dude, that's another. Yeah, I was just gonna say that, man. Like one of the cool things about this whole YouTube thing is that we do get to tell these stories and like in the under the guise of talking about film and all that shit. You know, like that's something else. Because honestly, like I've never really talked about it that much in depth before. Because that again, guys, I seriously hope nobody's ever put in that situation. But like I did for a second have to be like, is this person like, am I gonna have to like really hurt this person before they really hurt me? And that's not a good. That's a horrible feeling to have, and I don't wish that on anyone. But yeah, let's continue watching your review here, man. I'm interested.
Called Smart Hulk at the time, you know, the one who was in the crime world, and then combining personalities to make Professor Hulk, which was Banner and the Hulk as one. You know, it was all Banner actually. You know, he figured out how to close it all off for a long while, and so all the smarts and the strength were there, but no, you know, uncontrollable rage. And he's gone through so many different iterations. Like the most recently, before Donny Cates took over, you know, we had Immortal Hulk, and Al Ewing really went back to kind of basics with the body horror and the past of Brian Banner, his father, and all this crazy dark stuff. There's over the last 50 years, there's been so many interesting Hulk stories. But it's also understandable that it's a hard sell to your average comic book goer who just wants action, 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 girls with big boobs wearing hardly any clothes.
Hey, there's a time and
And
place.
that might be overstating
Oh,
it. That
yeah.
might be an oversimplification, but some of these people, that's basically where their head is. And it's never changed. You can tell by the way that they scream about it online that they really just want that.
Pronouns.
You know, they say that they want this, that, and the other, but really it's pretty simple. They want punch, punch, big boobs, men are in charge and strong and blah blah blah. And we're outcasts because we like comics and blah blah blah. So in the end, like this is the 2003 Ang Lee film was exploring the earliest stuff that you know even back then in the in the 60s and stuff that they were just really starting to tap into. And so they're and they covered like the gamut of things from not just one section of time. Ang Lee and screenplay writer James Seamus, who does most of Ang Lee's at the time, I believe, like all of his screenplays, who's also like a professor, a director, a business. Like this guy's like a Renaissance man in a way. The guy who wrote this movie, and they really approached it with that look of this is about a man who's trying to find himself, but it's also so much more than that. This is about obsession. This is about power. This is about immortality. But for when you look at it from who the director is, Ang Lee, it's about family. It's about fathers and sons and
Yeah, dude.
fathers and daughters.
Craziest part because like uh when that movie came out 2003, like me and my dad were like we were in that awkward phase where like my dad, like I'm his oldest son, I'm his first teenager, and I'm like this sulking like like angsty kid. And it was like my dad, like he was going through that phase in his life. He was trying to figure out how the fuck to even talk to me, and then we go and see this movie together, and it was just like it's weird. It's like weird how like I don't think he enjoyed the movie very much, but I think we both came out of that movie seeing someone else's like father's like dynamic on screen, and it just seemed like it was easier for us to deal with ours and shit. I'm gonna be right back here, guys. Give me just a second. All right. So yeah, let's continue watching here.
and obsessions that those men, those men have, and the fear, a lot of it about fear, how what's done to you can break you, and if you live your whole, like how you can live your whole life in fear and loneliness, and bottling things up, emotions, so that when it finally comes out, it's all rage, and it's all
Fire, brother.
handled so well, and it doesn't, it's not talking down to the audience, it's not dumbed down to the audience. Because if you look at Ang Lee's film history, he's not a guy who,
I think that's sort of what makes Hulk 2003's Hulk such a just such an interesting movie, right? Is that it is a movie, like, it's weird because it is such an emotional movie. It's such a movie about like these heavy emotional journeys and all these heavy themes, but at the same time, it's not so much, it's not just that it's a comic, right? Because we've had comic book movies before this, we've had comic book movies after this. What's interesting about Ang Lee's Hulk, and why I think it's such a, I haven't seen it in a while, so I can't tell you if I still think it's not that great a movie. I'm willing to, believe that this movie has a lot more to it than I understood when I was 15. Um, but like, what's interesting about this movie is that it does have this, a lot of this heavy emotional thematic underpinnings, and the story is pretty solid, but it has like all these goofy things that are meant to recreate like comic book frames, and like three, like, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Like, there's just interesting editing choices that are less filmic and more like a comic book, that I think just provided like a very, there's just some very, and you got to listen, you got to give it to Ang Lee for even trying to do this. But it sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, because there's times where like a very emotional scene will play out, and then it like freeze frames and turns into a comic book panel, and then we switch over to another comic, stuff like that. It's a bold choice, and I really love that the movie exists that did that. But I think it's hard to do that with such a dark, heavy, emotional like dynamic as Bruce Banner has with his father in this movie.
who you would think would be making this. But in retrospect, if you look at his stuff and you actually watch his movies, and then you pay attention to what's actually going on in Hulk, it completely makes sense that Ang Lee would make this movie. One of the most important references that I would like to think about when I'm talking about Ang Lee and why this movie, you'd have to talk about the movie The Ice Storm, which is a movie that I don't think hardly anybody knows about. Again, it has an incredible cast, and it's a family drama. And whether he's done like the movie Ride with the Devil about the brothers in the Civil War, Crouching Tiger, Hidden
Okay.
Dragon. Um, I'm forgetting all of them now, so sorry that I don't have all the information sitting in front of me. But a lot of this stuff has to do with families and what families do to each other, what we do to each other, period, as people. Ice Storm, what makes it significant to this conversation is, and first let's just say who's all in that, because it's great. If you have not seen the Ice Storm, go out and watch it right now. Get out of your cars in the middle of the road. No. Find somewhere safe. Find a day off. Find a nice little, chunk of time to find the Ice Storm and rent it, or wherever you can find it. It's hard to find, I think. I think you can rent it maybe on Prime, maybe. I don't think it's really streaming anywhere. But it's Kevin Kline, Sigourney Weaver, Joan Allen, Christina Ricci, Elijah Wood, Toby Maguire, Katie Holmes, and I believe David Krumholtz, I want to say. And throughout this movie, Toby Maguire, his character, is talking about his family. But he also spends a lot of time talking about the Fantastic Four and how they function as
There's
superheroes.
something interesting about that. Because there was like a very brief, there was a very brief moment of time where comic books were starting to become a little bit more appreciated, a little bit more taken seriously by the mainstream. Yeah, and yeah, no, the cast for this for Hulk 2003 was insane. But like, yeah, there was this weird, interesting time where comic books were not like pop culture, at least not on the level of like movies and TV. Um, and but like we're starting to like get like people um who grew up with comic books were starting to be get Hollywood gigs, right? And a great example of this is Unbreakable. Unbreakable and like Shyamalan's little trilogy is such a fascinating kind of glimpse into another universe, right? Because back in the day, before the MCU and all that shit, even before like two, excuse me, 2003's Hulk. God damn, sorry, excuse me, guys. I'm drinking coffee here. It's making my stomach rumble. But what was I saying? Yeah, where like comic books were like starting to become explored in cinema indirectly, right? And like again, Unbreakable is a good example of this, where M. Night Shyamalan wanted to make a superhero movie, and he wanted to like reference comic books, and comic books play a role in it in this sort of like thematic sort of way, in very interesting ways. And here we are. I haven't seen the Ice Storm myself, but like another example of this where he's using in the Ice Storm they use the discussion of Fantastic Four for seems like some sort of discussion of family. Another good example is Kill Bill Volume 2. Like the entire third act of that movie is just people talking about Superman in this belabored metaphor before a very climactic death, you know. Speaking of Critical Drinker, are you going to review his movie? I mean, if you guys want me to, yeah, if you guys want me to review his movie, I'll definitely do it. But I've in terms of like regularly covering that sort of scene, that's not really something I'm not doing as much these days. I'm not gonna say I'm never gonna touch that topic again, but at least for the time being, I'm putting that in the back burner. If you guys will excuse me, I do need to take a break here. I'll be back in just a few minutes. I'll let this video play out for a bit.
And a family. And that family aspect is very important. But the way that he talks about the Fantastic Four, it shows this really deep love for comics. And this is, from the screenplay by James Schamus, right? So James Schamus, he clearly, I don't know how close the collaboration is between the two. I probably think it would have to be pretty close for them to be working this many times together. But I was always really impressed with that they somehow were able to weave in comic book lore into this serious family drama from the 70s. That is, again, fantastic. Is one of the most underappreciated movies of the last 30 years, easy. And so after all these years looking at that and thinking about that and where Ang Lee came from for this movie, it just makes perfect sense. Because it should also be mentioned that Kevin Feige's name is on this movie. 2003, right there next to Stan Lee's name is Kevin Feige. And when I saw that, because I hadn't seen this movie, I just watched it for the first time in easily over 10 years. Because I was afraid of it. And not like afraid, but like I still had that old memory from when I first watched this movie that it just didn't really do it for me. I didn't understand it. But the more I thought about it, the more I went, wait a minute. And I was remembering scenes. And then I looked it up on YouTube. And this is where I did a little YouTube deep dive into this movie. And I found out I'm not alone in wondering about this movie. I wasn't alone in researching this movie. I wasn't alone in the curiosity of Ang Lee's Hulk. And I watched a little bit of their stuff, and it really made me go, I need to talk about this. But not in the way that they were talking about it, which is not a diss to them. The people that I looked up, they were talking more about it along the lines of filmmaking and how it holds up, and the CGI is actually better in some ways than the 2008 film, and blah, blah, blah. I knew that I was going to talk about it like this long form, sit in your car and listen to like some asshole Gen Xer talk about his life and comic books and Hulk and be all personal and touchy feely about it. But that's what I really feel like this movie is. It's a very touchy feely film. And that's what people couldn't handle, is that this is an honest look at what the Hulk is really about. It's not about smashing things. And even though, and I want to make sure that, after 30 minutes into this video, some people could have already made up their minds that I'm talking down to them or something or whatever. And here's another guy who, thinks he's smarter than everybody else or whatever. And I'm not. I'm just smart about a bunch of little. I know a lot about. I know a little about a lot of stuff when it comes to this kind of stuff and thinking logically about life, the world, and everything. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend I have all the answers. I don't know shit. I still don't know shit. I'm still figuring things out, and that's what part of the purpose is, to talk and try to work through things and help myself figure things out by talking and reaching out. And so this movie, and I'm going all over the place, folks, so sorry, because I still haven't even really gotten into the book. That's how much I wanted to talk about all the other things, but
All right, here we go.
To the actual.
All right, we get to the meat of things.
And so when you watch this movie, it goes into it. First off, it's like one of the easily. I'm trying to think of like best origin stories, because look, Bruce Wayne's origin story is simple. It's really simple. I know that they've dove into the interworkings of his family a lot more in the last 15, 20 years with his father and what he was really like, and them rewriting some of that to fit more a modern times of like where Thomas Wayne wasn't exactly the pinnacle of, goodness and rightness that,
I think there's something about that approach that like we need a little bit back. I think part of the reason why Villeneuve's like Dune movies are so special is because he he was never guaranteed a next movie. Like he was never guaranteed a Dune Part 2. So he only had Dune Part 1, and he had to put everything he possibly could into Dune Part 1. And I think that shows. And I think he did the same thing with Dune Part 2. He doesn't know if he's gonna get a Dune Part 3. So he really just put it all on the fucking table for Dune Part 2. And I think that benefits both Dune Part 1 and Part 2 in great ways, because they both feel like such all-encompassing works. The same thing with the Nolan trilogy. You say what you will about you know the consistency of quality between the three movies. All three of those movies are just like breaking the bank, going for it in their own unique ways. And I think and I feel like the approach where everybody knows that it's part of a franchise outright, it just kind of led to a different flavor of comic book movies that I think just hurt cinema more than helped it in the end.
it was always believed in the in the past. And in fact, they really didn't spend that much time with his origin, with Thomas Wayne and his wife, other than they loved their son and they were rich and he was a doctor and he helped people. But he also was complicated. But they didn't really get into it. It was really, at the time, it was all pretty simple. Rich boy's parents get murdered in front of him. Rich boy goes crazy. Rich boy learns how to beat the shit out of people, makes a symbol out of it, and becomes this one man army that in the end creates as much evil probably as as he does to stop it. And he's a psychopath. But he's a psychopath that we love to read about. And because he's so dark and messed up. Or Spider-Man. Pretty simple stuff, even though it's more complicated, I think, than Bruce Wayne's stuff. Like Superman's is more complicated than Batman's. Planet. Everybody on his planet decides, we don't know what we're talking about. Only one guy on the planet knows that everything's about to end, and they develop a plan to get their son out of there, and he comes here and he becomes Superman. And Clark Kent is. I loved when Quentin Tarantino described his origin
Speaking
of like he's always Superman, but he becomes Clark Kent, and that's how Superman sees us, as weak. And I thought that was brilliant. Or like with Peter Parker, he's a student, he's smart, he gets bit by a radioactive spider, gets all the powers of a spider, and then fumbling through his origins, he allows the man who ends up killing his uncle to get away. And the whole, with great power comes great responsibility, and Peter's greatest enemy is himself. He's agonizing over all the choices and wanting to save everybody and all that.
Let's see.
And you get like Captain America, Steve Rogers.
I mean, I think like overall, what I think this is a really good example of here. It's sort of like building off of what Pauline Kael used to do here, where essentially, like, the film review is not so much the film; it's the overall cumulative effect, and yeah, like the overall emotional experience, and I think that's a really big part of it. And I mean, I think it's really cool, because YouTube has very much like made one type of film review kind of famous, right? And we'll go ahead and do some of that right now. Let's look up Chris Stuckman's review of yes, let's see his review of Love Lies Bleeding right here. We'll see a couple people's review here. Because I kind of want to just see the style of how different people go about it,
Everyone is going to appreciate Love Lies Bleeding.
Oh, I think I was already watching it in the back. Hey, what's up, man? What's my rating, dude? Like, I fucking love Love Lies Bleeding so much, man. Like seriously, dude, that is such a movie. That is a movie ass movie. That is a movie that has a lot of movie in it. It's what you see in what the movie you think you're getting in the trailer. It does a really good job of doing that, but at some point it becomes something way crazier. And this has like one of my favorite like the last like 10 minutes of this movie is what like indie cinema is all about, bro. That's all I'll say about Love Lies Bleeding. I am a big fan. Let's check out Chris Suckman's review here.
Love Lies Bleeding was directed by Rose Glass, the filmmaker behind Saint Maud.
I like
So
Saint
in
Maud, too.
1989, gym manager Lou, played by Kristen Stewart, meets a bodybuilder named Jackie, who's working out at the gym, and they fall in love. But unbeknownst to Jackie, she just got a job with Lou's father, who she's never met, who just so happens to have a shady past that threatens to upend their relationship. We'll get into
Yeah, the way that all comes together, dude. The way that I'm gonna go to skip through this thing. Okay, here we go.
had lower back problems. It's genetic. Both of my even physically gotten covered.
Come on, man.
All the you make low helix.
There
When
you
it comes
go.
to sophomore efforts, making your second film after you've already had a critical darling, like Rose Glass did with Saint Maud, I can imagine that was a strange feeling for her to have.
Oh, the character of Daisy, dude. Like that's one of my. That was such a. This movie has like every performance in this movie is pitch perfect and on point. But that character right there of Daisy is one of my favorite. Like kind of describe her. A very annoying, but a very sweet in a way that you want to hate her, but you just can't. Dude, I tell you, Love Lies Bleeding is such a fucking trip. I'm still looking for Saint Maud's second. Hey, you know what though? You know what? I will tell you this. I see what you're saying. It is like a very focused one. It can very easily be a short film, I think. Definitely. But I will say this: Love Lies Bleeding does not have that problem. It does not. Yeah, that Love Lies Bleeding goes places, bro. It goes places. Like it's some great places. 100%.
Try to prove herself again, because making a good film right out of the gate is hard enough. But now you got to prove that you're not just going to copy and paste what you already did and make the same film again, but different, but that you can handle a larger budget. In this case, Love Lies Bleeding is a much bigger budget than Saint Maud, but also prove that your abilities are varied and diverse
By the
enough.
way, Dave Franco is surprisingly really good at it. He's such a great scumbag in this. I wonder where he got his inspiration from on that.
To be able to make a third and fourth and a fifth movie for the rest of your life, keep making movies while also still making something that's kind of like the first one. So at least people know what you
You know
do.
what? You know, it's a good comparison for Love Lies Bleeding and Saint Maud. Um, the Lighthouse, going from the Witch to the Lighthouse. Like, I love the Witch. I didn't love Saint Maud. I thought it was really good. But like, it was when I saw the Lighthouse, that's when that's when it became very clear that like he wasn't just like a one note pony. Like the like both Rose Glass and Robert Eggers with their second movies definitely kind of like show and give us the full kind of like rundown, a hint as to what they are capable of. Um, and you know, say what you will about the actual like scope of the subject matter and story of Saint Maud. It does have like a visual imagination, and that evolves in some very interesting ways in Love Lies Bleeding. Again, dude, the last 10 minutes of this movie, and dude, oh my god, I don't want to keep going on and on about this movie, bro, but like, it's one of those. Let's put it this way: it's one of those movies that like earns kind of like Pearl. It earns making you stay through the credits. That's all I'll say. It'll make you like it doesn't like it makes you want to do it. That's all I'll say about it. I watched some really awful movies for free the last couple of weeks just because I ran out of things to watch while drawing. You know, you gotta watch some trash. You know, you gotta have a starburst every now and then if you're gonna enjoy a good like, you know, ribeye steak or something. A24 is kind of like the Adult Swim of the film industry. They both make a ton of really weird, risky, and ambitious media. And even when they fail, you can still guarantee that they'll be interesting. No, 100%. I agree with you. I don't think, yeah, I've never regretted watching an A24 movie. But again, I am very like happy to say that Love Lies Bleeding, at least for me, does not fail. That movie fucking that's a great movie. Is all I'll say about it. I don't want to oversell it too much. Just really bad stuff. So I'm like, new appreciation for things. I don't think we're quite up to snuff. Otherwise, you know what? That's a good thing to do. See, that's right. How we manage our taste and shit. Because like when I sit down and watch like something substantial, like The Godfather or Barry Lyndon, you know, like movies that reward that ask of and require undivided attention and serious consideration. Like when I watch one of those, like I'll need like a couple of maybe like a week before I watch anything else. And then I'll watch some like B movies or some trash before I start watching some more serious movies again. I think you know it's weird, right? How we like ebb and flow with the movies that we pick to see and shit. Um, yeah, no, because yeah, like it's good to have like just sort of I don't know if like trash is for me. I don't really like what I like to have in the background while I'm doing other stuff is like making of documentaries or really well done long form video essays. Like there's this guy, a real life Ryan. He does like 6 hours, like super in depth retrospectives of like horror franchises. He just did one on Child's Play yesterday. I haven't had a chance to see it. I was busy putting the finishing touches on the Looper and the Last Jedi video. I'm probably going to be listening to it while I'm at work.
Keep getting hired. It's a really strange time, and it's very difficult to get that second thing going. And when it comes to Love Lies Bleeding, I enjoyed Saint Maud. I love this film so much more. This was one of those
Yep.
movies where the first shot hooked me so much that for the rest of the movie, I was just waiting for it to disappoint me. You ever feel that way where you love the way a movie opens so much and you think there is no way they can sustain this because it's just gonna disappoint me because that's what happens with movies, right? The camera descends out of the stars and into this seedy, sweaty gym filled with rippling bodies and sweat, blood, and tears. I read an interview with Rose Glass where she talked about the fact that she's not really familiar with this area. She's not from America, but she wanted to make a movie that told this story. And originally, it was actually going to take place in Scotland. If you look at old sports documentaries of bodybuilders from the 1980s and 1990s, you get to look into the window of that world and sort of peek through the blinds. And if you imagine watching a VHS tape of what a bodybuilder competition in the 80s might have looked like, that's what Love Lies Bleeding feels like. The whole movie has a layer of grime.
Yeah.
The production design, aesthetic, and the set decoration and props, everything looks a little filthy. Close-ups of payphones, the numbers don't look brand new. It doesn't look like somebody built a payphone for this film. It looks like they took a knife and scratched through the metal and put graffiti on everything. Everybody's sweaty in this film. Everything has a layer of grease to it. The movie looks amazing. I've seen tons of TV shows and movies that take place in the 80s. It's a very popular aesthetic right now. Stranger Things really took that to the limit, and it's even getting a little old now to say that your movie takes place in the 80s. I have not seen one that feels so authentically correct, because a lot of what's in this movie.
By the way, also like the music is fucking great in Love Lies Bleeding. I don't know if he mentions it, but it has like a very dream pop, synth pop sort of a vibe to it, but it doesn't feel modern in a weird way. You know, it also has a lot of what I could only call lesbian dominatrix music. And I'm not gonna lie, it fucking rips. It's pretty good. I don't know much about lesbian dominatrixing, but I'd imagine that if you're trying to get through your 8-hour shift, that's what you put on.
Into the early 90s, the outfits and the payphones and the technology, it's not like that all just vanished in 1990. It's clear that Rose Glass and all of her team thought extensively about every single detail. Everything from the vending machines to a poster on the wall in a hospital that reflects a medical scare of the 1980s that everybody was talking about. I cannot praise the team behind the look of this movie enough. Let's talk a little bit about Kristen Stewart. She's an actress that has made very unique choices for years, all the way from Panic Room to Spencer. Whether it's a big franchise movie or a small indie, you never exactly know what to expect from her. After her Oscar nomination with Spencer, following up with this film, which is in a way a thriller with horror adjacent elements that also has a lot of dark humor in it, this is one of my favorite performances that she's ever given. She's asked a lot of here. She has to convincingly fall in love with someone, have excellent chemistry with that person. There are elements of horror in the movie. There are action.
Yeah, no, dude, Lulu and fucking Jackie are just a great cinematic couple, and I mean cinematic, dude. Their love story is the stuff of great cinematic love stories, man. Like, really great. Again, cannot recommend Love Lies Bleeding enough, man. Fantastic movie.
Sequences in the film that she has to pull off well, and she's got to supply this character with flesh and blood. You have to believe that she's real, that she's had a life and a past, and the film has a very interesting way of exploring that.
The thing that I think is interesting about Chris Stuckman here is because, like, in this review, it really does feel like he's in depth here. Like, he goes on. We're about 6 minutes into this. And I feel like he really does give this film a full evaluation. You know, maybe I think that's the other aspect of what I specifically look for and value in film criticism. It's just like a full appreciation of the art form. You know, we're talking about a Chris Stuckman here, who was into post-production on his first movie. And I really think that, like I said last week, I think everybody who wants to criticize films should just make a film. I'm not saying make a great film. I'm just saying finish a movie. Just do that. Just get a movie done. and I think everybody who wants to criticize movies would be a lot kinder if they just accomplished the task of finishing a movie. You know, I'm not saying that there should be like a test or nothing, but I think you can really which critics have put their asses on the line and actually tried to make art themselves, and which haven't, because I think the former are a lot kinder and a lot more acknowledging of what movies get right, even if they're not overall well-made movies. I watched Behaving Badly, which is 100% the worst movie I've ever seen. So complaints about Saltburn and the Marvels hold less weight. Yeah, hey, it's good to do that. Honestly, it's good to just refresh and reset and manage what you watch in that way.
Well, with sequences tinged in red, you see some of them in the trailers. You begin to realize things that have happened to her without having to be told. Katie O'Brien as Jackie. You may have seen her in The Mandalorian. She is perfect
Fucking
casting.
amazing.
Apparently, she auditioned 6 times for this role, and she clearly earned it. A competitive bodybuilder herself in the past, she obviously knows the ins and outs of this character, but what's asked of her is not just to be in such impressive physical shape, because the physical side of Jackie is in direct contrast to the emotional side of her, which really needs to win this competition, which needs to feel like all this training she's done will pay off. And when the wrong thing
That scene is
happens
fucking great.
to her, it just sets off this chain of events where you are sort of revealed the humanity
Yeah,
inside
dude,
of her.
Jackie's character is just so fucking like, god damn. Yeah, her journey in Love Lies Bleeding is like, here's what's great about it. There are no like wasted characters in it. She could very easily have been the love interest or something like that, but no, she is, this character is fucking fantastic. Just straight up, Jackie is Jackie. Lulu is a great character, but Jackie is the kind of character that people should have will have posters of in their rooms and shit. I think she's gonna be like a cult icon.
And you can see all of that on the screen. And that's because Katie O'Brien is so open and so damn good here. More than that, the movie is devastatingly romantic. I believed
It's a
every single
very
aspect of
romantic
it. It all
movie.
rang true to me. A lot of that is to be attributed to these performers being willing to do just about anything. And you can really tell that Rose Glass just made a horror movie because there are a lot of gory parts here. Some very shocking gore.
Oh man, there is one. This is, there is one like moment in particular where the sound design, especially, just like really just, I mean, just talk about a great accumulation of effects and of sound and of editing, because the way that effect worked was just like gnarly as all fucking hell. When that Kaczynski was talking to RLM, he said he wasn't offended by the critiques as they knew how hard filmmaking was. Yeah, yeah. Again, you could see it. I mean, you could totally see it in Red Letter Media too, because they're not like fucking like like Mahler, where he just wants to like fucking like shit and hate on everything. Like, even when they don't like a movie, you can see that there is a love for the craft in there. I always say that like it's very hard for me to hate a movie. I'm not always gonna like a movie, but it's very rare that I actually like just hate a movie. But that's because like in order for me to hate a movie, it needs to just the only things I think the only movies that I really hate are just movies that are made so cynically that there's no love, thought, or care put into it. If a movie just like has people giving a shit, even if it's just like a not that great a movie, I am gonna be much more interested in it, maybe a little bit kinder to it than most, just because like, hey, like I understand my, like I said, my movies are up there, you guys can see them, like I have my approach for a reason. Like I've tried to do this shit. There's a reason why I'm a welder instead. Like this shit is hard, and it's very difficult. So I think there's just a low level respect that I'm always going to have for any movie, except for just shit that's made to make a fucking buck, or crap like that. Other than that, I'm probably going to be very fucking open minded to whatever's out there.
Parts that are handled really well, like
Like,
things
like
you
the
see.
God's Not Dead movies, right? Like I those movies I genuinely hate, because like there is an intention and there is a thought behind it, but it's all just so like disconnected and so sinister and so clearly propagandistic and shit. Like it's that kind of shit I hate, you know. But that doesn't mean that like, I mean, I'm sure there's really good Christian movies out there. I almost like did a segment for the Noah essay where I watched better um higher rated Christian movies, but ultimately I thought it was going to distract from the overall point of the video. So I didn't do it. But like, yeah, my problem with God's Not Dead is not that it's Christian, it's that it's Christian propaganda, if that makes sense. It's not Christian art, it's Christian specifically made to like push a very divisive narrative that's in no way based on reality.
Just for a second that leave you kind of with that image in your mind, burned honestly into your mind. There were people in my audience, which was packed, by the way, that gasped a few times with some
Oh
of the
yeah.
great makeup work
By
that's
the
done
way,
here. Speaking of audience
what
reactions,
was like? It was just me and Lindsay yesterday, like in the movie theater, which was kind of cool actually. That I mean, it kind of added to the romantic vibe a lot. I only like the cash grab movies when I'm the one cat. Okay, yeah, fair enough. But outside of that specific scenario,
I am so glad I saw this movie in a packed theater, because there's a scene in this film that had my theater in an uproar.
hell yeah,
People were clapping, people were shouting, people were saying, "What?" Some people were laughing. It had this crazy ripple effect in the room that I have not felt in a theater. I can't remember the last time I have felt an audience move like that, almost like doing the wave at a baseball game where everyone just sort of like undulates and reacts in a different way. It is clearly a scene that will polarize people and will absolutely be talked about for a very long time. And I loved seeing something that was that audacious on the big screen. Ed Harris is also great here. He enters the pantheon of really terrifying villains with really terrifying hair. He can join the ranks of Javier Bardem in No Country for
so
Old
this
Men,
isn't a
Gary
family,
Oldman in The Fifth Element.
not a nuclear family, but like maybe like a weird cultish type of family, maybe, but not no, maybe not most people's definition.
Or even Will
Like this is a
Ferrell's
good movie for thruples. Let's put it that way.
Mugatu from Zoolander. Not everyone is going to appreciate Love Lies Bleeding, just like every movie that's ever been made. But I do think that there will be some people who don't quite like the way the film resolves itself, because it is not a typical ending.
And those people
It
are
does what it does.
lame, dude. And he's right. There's gonna be people who look at the ending of this movie, and yeah, it is a very unconventional one. But there's a name for those people, and that's boring. They're boring people. Don't watch movies with them.
And it says, yeah, that's the movie I just made, and I hope you like it. And I really appreciate that. I miss movies that take big swings like that, that pose questions to the audience and make you kind of laugh and think to yourself, how absurd was that? What really just happened? And can someone explain it to me? Or do I even want it explained? Do I kind of like that I have no idea, but I love the experience? I love this movie. I will see anything that Rose Glass does at this point. I think people who like film
that's what I told my girlfriend afterwards. Like I literally walked out, I was like, you know what? From now on, anything Rose Glass does, I'm gonna watch. Just after watching this movie. Usually their first name is Jeremy for real. Speaking of Jeremy, let's check. You know what? I was gonna say let's move on to Jeremy Jans here. Jeremy Jans. I don't know why I like saying that, but I do. Okay. I thought that was a very in-depth, very well done review. All right, let's look how he started out here. Let's look at his what some of his earlier reviews. Let's look at Inception, a movie that I'm sure he was very high on.
I saw Inception.
Whoa, dude, it's so weird. Like Chris Stuckman without that Stuckman song. Something else that was cool. Something that I'm sorry here. I want to make sure I get the name right. Yeah, smirking gun kind of mentioned out here that something that's kind of cool about the YouTube era of film reviews and stuff. It's just like how personal it is, right? Like, yeah, I got to tell my story of like when that dude fucking tried to break into our house. But like Chris Stuckman very famously went on Double Toasted. And by the way, Corey Coleman, super underrated interviewer. That guy knows how to fucking like get people to open up very well. And that Chris Stuckman interview where like I like dude, it's so weird. Like I don't know if you guys have seen that Double Toasted Chris Stuckman interview and stuff, but like you could just kind of tell like from the moment that the interview starts that like Stuckman is like his head is a little heavy, and then I didn't know this, by the way, but and by the way, like spill.com inspired so many fucking people, but it was such a like under the radar site, you know. And I'm talking about Corey Coleman Double Toasted, like the iteration of Double Toasted before what it is today. You know, it was called Spill. I was a Spillio back in the day, and it's so crazy now how many people who I used to like shit talk in the forums to are other YouTubers, are, you know, have been guests on Double Toasted and shit. Like that to me, that was like the cool club of film review. That was somewhere between like just like people who enjoy movies like all out, you know, goofy, fun shit, good shit, and snobs, but also people that weren't like, you know, screeching nerds and shit, you know, like I don't know, like I miss spill.com. Was that the one with the yes, 100%. Yep, that was the one with the animated critics. That's it. Yeah, with the co-host 3000, the floating ball and shit. Man, I miss that guy. Like fucking Let's Do This was like my favorite fucking podcast for like 10 years, dude. Oh, dude, I'm getting all fucking nostalgic here. But you know what? Again, I think they're another very good example because part of their appeal too was that every now and then Corey would just fucking tell like a really personal story about like his childhood or something like that, like during when they were talking about certain movies. And like when you do that, it really does inform how other people view your opinion in very, very cool ways. And anyways, you know, getting back to what I was talking about, Chris Stuckman's interview with Corey Coleman was very vulnerable and very revealing. And that's like, dude, yeah, 100%, bro. I fucking like. There's archives on YouTube, by the way. You can still find like a lot of those old like episodes, and they still hold up. The horror geek in his B movie Babylon series would spend the first few minutes discussing his relationship to the film he was. Oh yeah, see, that's what I'm getting at too, though, because like in that interview, Chris Stuckman talks about how he grew up with a very strict Jehovah's Witness household. Um, and in that interview, he tells the story about how like his YouTube channel, you know, was a wedge between him and his church and him and his family. And it's this whole crazy thing because he talks about how like his relationship with movies. It was very much, I think, you know, my relationship, and I'm sure a lot of your guys' relationship with movies too, where it was like, you know, like movies were like my friends when I was a kid. Like I wasn't a very popular kid when I was younger, so to me, movies sort of fill that void and stuff. So like I developed a very personal relationship with movies and with wanting to make movies and stuff like that. And you know, Chris sort of talks about his story. I mean, I never went through the sort of stuff he did, but I did grow up in a very conservative town. And I was a very, you know, very weird kid, you know, according to them. Like I'm pretty sure I would have been just normal like in a big city somewhere. But like yeah, like and he sort of touches on that, but like in the form of him growing up very religious. And it's this whole thing, man. It's this whole saga. But I think what's interesting is that, like, once you understand that about people, once you know that about people, like those parts of who they are, because I don't think anybody knew anything about Pauline Kael or Roger Ebert at that level, at least not until, you know, not as they were writing mid-career and shit. But we do know this stuff about the people who we watch, and that also, the ability to talk about film on that level also kind of speaks to the other sort of unspoken parts of film review and film culture, which is not specific to the films itself and more to the greater appeal experience of the art form. But yeah, no, let's watch early Stuckman here. Just remember, this is like Stuckman, not like after you watch that interview, you understand that like his earlier stuff is him as a Jehovah's Witness kid trying to figure out how to talk about these movies and not get in trouble. So like this is gonna let's see how this comes off knowing that. QMR, quick movie reviews.
So let's just face it, we are in a year of crap. 2010 has had some very good movies. Shutter Island, Toy Story 3, and even some surprises. The Karate Kid. No one expected that movie to be good. But overall, this year has been disappointing to the point where I just keep leaving the theater like, why? You know, like I go to see a movie and I'm like, This one's gonna be it. Never mind. I was like, Last Airbender. You can do it, Shyamalan. Nothing. Robin Hood. It's gonna be great. Boring. I'm getting to the point where I'm like, why? Why am I doing this? Why am I going to these movies? Enter Inception. Directed by Christopher Nolan, director of Following, Memento, Insomnia, Batman Begins, The Prestige, The Dark Knight. His new movie is called Inception. It's this grand, original story. Inception takes place in a futuristic world where people are able to transmit themselves into people's dreams to extract information from those dreams. No spoilers, so enjoy this review because no spoilers. I never.
I think it's very interesting to hear, just like right off the bat, how like every movie that he just mentioned there are big studio releases. Which is, I mean, I think it's pretty standard, but I think nowadays something that I like about Chris Stuckman is that he does use this platform to sort of talk about smaller films.
There's one big job.
By the way, that's something that I'll never do. That's something that I will never do. You know what? Going back to the topic of how we manage our like movie diets and shit like that, I thought about being one of those channels who goes and watches like every big release that week and all that shit. But I mean, A, I don't have the time. B, I don't have the interest, to be honest, in the majority of what the big movies are. And B, if I had to watch movies that often, and then it would be my job. And I don't want movies to be my job. I mean, to be real, making movies will be another fucking story. But in terms of like watching movies, making that my job, I feel like that would actually be a detriment to my ability to enjoy movies outside of work. You know, Robin Hood is another film that has aged well. You know what? I haven't heard anybody really talk about that one. But I do think that like Napoleon was it's like a key change, like in music, right? Like when the key changes a little bit, when it sort of shifts, where like it maintains like still like a major key, but it goes from like an E to a C. Anyways, what I'm saying is like I think like Napoleon could be a key change to like understanding his approach to biographical works, you know, because like I know House of Gucci was badly reviewed and Napoleon wasn't reviewed very well either, but it was a little bit more positive because people started to catch on like, oh, he's making comedies. These aren't dramas, these are comedies. And I think a lot of people are going back to um at least House of Gucci and reappraising it from that point of view. So I think maybe I could see how that's aged well because that happens every now and then too. When somebody puts something out that like, oh, like it clicks retroactively and shit. I think that's what's gonna happen with Ari Aster. By the way, I'm really excited to do this Bo is Afraid video. I got other couple projects that I got to get done first before I get to that, and I'm waiting for some discs to come in. But um, you know, I think like because I didn't like Midsommar when I saw it in theaters, but then I watched Beau is Afraid, and I was like, you know, like didn't like Beau is Afraid either, but it made me like I think like understand the underlying like emotional reality of Midsommar a little better. So I actually like I ordered the director's cut from A24 yesterday. Like the Beau is Afraid video is gonna have a lot of required viewing for me, which I'm very excited for, by the way. But like, what was I saying here? Yeah, I think it's interesting and it's really cool when that happens sometimes in a person's career. You know. Hey, what's up, DL? Good to see you, man. Thanks for stopping by.
Leonardo DiCaprio, who is known as the Extractor, has to take in order to get his life back. So him, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ellen Page, Ken Watanabe, Cillian Murphy. What's that guy's name? But he's awesome in it. As I explain the plot to you, I'm trying very hard to withhold something. And what that is, this is one of the greatest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. It is most definitely the best movie I've seen so far this year.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I see myself here a little bit because when I was back in 2010, I had a tendency to oversell the fuck out of every movie, you know? I mean, I still kind of do that. I'm very generous with my 5 out of 5s, you know, like, and I acknowledge that, but that's because, um, to me, like, it's not hard to give me a 5 out of 5. Just be the best version of what you can be, and you got me there. That's why I gave Love Lies Bleeding a 5 or a 10, you know. Um, but yeah, like, despite my ratings, like ratings are just numbers, like whatever to me. I need to still see Inception. You know, like uh, I'm not a big fan of it, but it's I have my I'm definitely not in the status quo on that one. But what was I saying? Yeah, like I know, like back then in 2010, I definitely like had a bad habit of overselling everything and like coming out of a movie that I just really like being like, that was the greatest movie ever and shit. Like I see, and he's doing it right now too. So that's kind of interesting. I think that's a thing, right? I think there's a place for this. There's a place for this sort of like unabashed, like unfiltered movie passion. Like I think there's a case to be made for that shit to be out there. But like back in the day, you wouldn't get the job if this was you. At least not like in a serious publication like the New Yorker or the Chicago Times or something, the Chicago Times. Love Lies Bleeding. I'm seeing next week. Have you seen Drive Away? I haven't seen Drive Away Dolls, no, but I'm probably gonna check it out when let's say it's a streamer. This is a review of a young man. We've all been super hyped after seeing a film, but on reflection, yeah, very true. No, we're reviewing Chris Stuckman, the reviewer, at this point, 14 years ago.
Christopher Nolan has finally made a movie that delivered people's expectations and exceeded them. I've been seeing so many movies this year where I'm just like, oh my gosh, why am I going to movies like this? This movie reminds me why I go to movies. This movie just has everything. The acting in this film is excellent. Leonardo DiCaprio, as usual, who is very
Like another thing too, like he's just being like he's excellent. He's not really speaking to what about it makes it excellent, So we're seeing like much less experienced reviewer here. And I think it's kind of fun to see them back and forth.
rated, in my opinion, is so good in this movie. I'm telling you guys, I've told you this before. I've said this before. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is the next big thing. The
Dude, okay, here's the thing. I was watching I watched Looper again recently. I watched The Last Jedi in December, and like that's a movie that lives rent free in a lot of our heads. Let's be real here. So I didn't have to watch it again for the last one. It's just so recent, but I did rewatch Looper, and I was like, man, what happened? What happened to Joseph Gordon-Levitt? He really was like the next big thing. And then he made Don John, and I think it was just such a weird movie that like everybody felt weird around him. Uh, and I haven't seen it myself, but I heard that it is one of those uh black tank top movies, just on a much higher level. I watched Gucci on a plane and hated it. I'm not sure a rewatch would improve it. Well, some movies just don't work either. I haven't seen House of Gucci myself.
Awesome. 500 Days of Summer was great. And this movie proves that he has a whole nother side to him, an action hero sense
He
to
was
him
great in
that
Looper.
I just dug like so intensely in this movie. I was geeking out during this movie. I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but there was a scene in this movie where I was sitting in the theater and I was just like, oh my gosh. Oh. And I wanted to go like, but I knew that everyone
it's such a like it's charming, man. It's charming. Like I'm not saying it doesn't get in a bad way, but it is such a like childlike way to express like a love of cinema and shit. It's kind of
on me would be like,
endearing is what it is.
like, dude, what's your problem? I've just been seeing so many movies this year where I'm just so disappointed. Finally, one is coming out. It's good. And it's so good. I need to calm down. But I can't. I've liked every single movie Christopher Nolan has directed. I have not seen Following, but I've seen Memento through now Inception. Every single one of them is good. The guy is a beast. He is pretty much the greatest filmmaker working nowadays. Steven Spielberg is amazing. He is fantastic. However, he's still my favorite director because Steven Spielberg has been making movies for like 3 decades or something, 4 decades, and Christopher Nolan has yet to make a bad movie. Besides the point, everything about this movie works. The writing is just brilliant. It is one of the most original movies I've ever seen in my life. Finally, a movie.
I think we're getting the point here, guys, is that this is a very kind of like inexperienced film reviewer. It's kind of, it's kind of like sweet to seeing him, back in the day and shit. But this is a very sincere, to be fair, as much it is much easier now to put in the clip from the trailer of what you mean. Yeah, and also like there's a lot of stuff here that I think that younger or older Chris Stuckman probably would have cut out like some redundancies and shit. Hey, Kingdom of Nerd, how you doing, man? Thanks for stopping by. What was I gonna put up here? Yeah, let's sort of it's like weird, right? Because for the longest time, Channel Awesome and Nostalgia Critic and stuff, that was like the prevailing model for being a successful film reviewer on YouTube. And don't get me wrong, it's been years since I've watched this shit, anything from any of those creators.
This episode brought to you by Hunt.
I watch God, what's his fucking name? Fuck, I forgot his Cinema Snob. I still watch Cinema Snob every now and then. But yeah, I haven't checked in on this here in a while. But one of the criticisms, and I think it's dude, fucking A. Just want to point this out right here. Look at this shit. What if Two-Face survived the Dark Knight? Like, oh my god, fucking Doug, let it go, buddy. Let it go, man. That was going on what 16 years ago. He's still being this video is 16 years too late, Doug Walker. Come on, dude. 21,000. Look, and I'm right. It only got 21,000 views right there. That's how little people care. But that like Doug Walker is sitting around with his brother still being like geeking out about the Dark Knight like it just came out yesterday. Okay. Okay, let's see how let's compare Doug Walker today. All right, let's.
Man, I knew the Wonka prequel would be dark, but this is intense. Do buddy do.
My allegiance is to you. You believe me?
Time to return to a divided world where a mouse is the messiah. Completely different from our own world with Doom Part 2. So before I give my thoughts on this movie, I should give my thoughts not only on the last one that came out, but the other versions of Doom, because there aren't a ton, but there are a few.
You don't have to do that, Douglas. I think this is like the sort of the brain rot of being like very single-minded on like one type of content you make and shit. Like you don't have to do that, Doug. You don't have to talk about all that. You can just talk about Dune Part 2, homie. Like it's fine. We don't need that much context.
I think it will play a little bit into your enjoyment of this movie. I sadly didn't get into the David Lynch Dune. I love David Lynch, but I didn't enjoy it for the same reason most people didn't enjoy it. It was very boring. I do like when it goes bonkers and weird, like I enjoy with a lot of David Lynch stuff. However, I really enjoy the sci-fi miniseries. I like Dune, and I really enjoy Children of Dune. The downside is that they didn't have much of a budget. They had the budget of a sci-fi miniseries, but at the same time, they worked with it very, very well, and I thought they captured the feel for the stories. But even then, they had a few flaws here and there. And then the last film, I was pleasantly surprised people got into.
I'm kind of curious about the TV miniseries. I forgot which. I think it was Second Sight, maybe. Or somebody put out the sci-fi TV miniseries on Blu-ray. I'm considering checking it out
because I enjoyed it, but I thought only people who read the books.
Oh shit! By the way, did you guys see the Criterion announcement for June? They're putting out Barry Jenkins' Underground Railroad series on a 4-disc set. Like, dude, I'm stoked. I'm getting that for sure. I've been wanting to buy Small Axe from Steve McQueen also, so I'm probably just gonna buy both. But like fucking, I've been wanting Criterion to get into TV because I want Criterion to put out a Leftovers box set. That's my favorite show of all time, and I think it belongs in the Criterion collection. I seriously buy that if you guys want to encourage that shit. I'm just saying, do miniseries are bootlegged on YouTube, yeah, but like I'm a snob about this shit. Like this is my thing that I'm a snob about. Like if I'm gonna watch that for all that time, I want it to be in good quality, and if I don't dig it, I'll just sell it later. Not a big deal.
Would enjoy this movie. I thought they were marketing it as an action picture. They didn't say it was part 1 and that there was going to be more, and I thought people were going to be really let down by that and think there was too much talking, but people really, really got into it, and it really surprised me and kind of lifted my spirits a little bit because I didn't know people would get into a film like this because when I saw it, I enjoyed it, but it's kind of like seeing half of the first Star Wars movie, like the beginning up to maybe when they get to
I
the
don't disagree. Well, I mean, it doesn't develop his deeper thoughts, but that's
Death Star. So even though I enjoyed it, it was hard to say it was great because it was still missing half the story, like the best part of the story. And I didn't know if people were going to get into that, and they did. So now we do have part 2 where shit goes down and things really, really happen, and there's big battles and big plot twists and everything like that. And not to sound like a cliche, but if you enjoyed Doom Part 1,
yeah, dude, part 2. I'm not gonna lie, I've thought about it a lot. Like I want to make sure I see it one last time before it leaves IMAX. Or I've never seen anything on a Dolby screen. I want to go check out I want to go see the movie on Dolby screen maybe next time. This place ain't big enough for the two of us. Let's continue watching here.
I think you're going to love Doom Part 2.
You've been fighting the Harkonnens for decades. My family's been fighting them for centuries.
We are done draining out the sweat from his fat skin suit. This is a true spectacle. It is done setting things up, and it is finally going into the meat of the story. What's interesting about it, why people still read the books and celebrate the story, even though it's a very familiar story.
I want to go back here a little bit because
about it, why people.
You guys see that shit? I don't know if you guys have seen this movie before yet, but I really just want to draw attention to this. You guys see these little like goofy fucking things in the background? These like jester hats and shit. It is contrasted against this violent fucking fight scene, and like you gotta give it to Denis, because straight up he was like, all right, we're gonna shoot this fucking intense ass fight scene, then we're just gonna have these goofy little guys. There's just these goofy little buggers, these little dudes just like hanging out in the background, and they're just gonna, they're just gonna like come in, come out, they're just gonna kind of be there, and the confidence that you can have that, and have them be there, and it's like it works, by the way. Like, it's not distracting, but it is so like weird. It's a good contrast. It is, to have these court jesters against such a violent scene. It's a good move, but it's also like one of those moves that is just like a bad director would have fucked that up, so only the Denis Villeneuves of the world can fucking do that kind of shit. Denis was making the first Dune. Yeah, these studios guys are gonna green light the second one. Right? No, I really like. I've been wanting to make the video of the whole like, hey Denis, love it, love Dune Part 1. I think it's great, but it's a wacky universe. It really is. And I think we could do something like Star Wars, where they put the text on screen with some really good, like, arousing symphonic music, and then Denis is like, best I can do is Tibetan throat singing, or singing in alien language. I'll give you 3 sentence. And then the studio is like, what? No, man, we're gonna. And then he's like, you get 2 sentence, and he just fucking hangs up like that. That's how that played out to me. Like, I think that's the real conversation that went down there. I think that weird Tibetan throat singing that we get at the very beginning of both the Dune movies is their Star Wars like scroll, and it's such a like fitting contrast to it, because like, unlike Star Wars, that's this grandiose, like, way to introduce you to the world. Like, what Denis does with the Tibetan throat speaking and the alien language, and like 2 very cryptic sentences, is that it's like purposefully alienating and purposefully like off-putting, and like, because it's like, it is weird because it gives the same effect as the scrolls in Star Wars. Like, they're both meant to like bring you into the world, but Star Wars is this welcoming, exciting thing, and then fucking Dune is this like, get ready, motherfucker, we're going to fucking space in the future, bitch. All right, let's keep watching.
Still read the books and celebrate the story, even though it's a very familiar story. I mean, these are very familiar beats we've seen over and over, of a chosen one, a messiah who's going to lead and oppress people to victory. And it does all of that. It follows the book relatively closely. There are some changes, and we'll get to that.
Which is why, dude, Dune Part 2 is easily like just starting off the year with the fucking bang. But I'll be real with you, man. Love Lies Bleeding is another fucking fantastic movie. It's nothing like Dune, but you should check out Love Lies. No, I think you said you were checking it out. I think you said you did. Let me check back here. Still to see Inception. Oh yeah, you're seeing it next week. Yeah, no, dude. So I'm excited to hear what you think about it when the next time I stream and stuff.
Than a bit, but it really captures the feel of this world, the atmosphere, and the size. Man, if you thought the first Dune film was big and epic, it only gets bigger. Throw in violence, action, new characters. I am really glad we got the other nephew in this. I really thought they merged them into one character in the first movie, but I should have known better. They were holding off on showing some of these characters until later so you can reveal them. They're great to see.
I'm in
Not
love
only
with the trailer. Yeah, no, I think that, yeah, it's one of those oh, for Love Lies Bleeding. Yeah, dude. Oh man, if you love the trailer, bro, like dude, it's like indie cinema magic, bro. Love Lies Bleeding is such a fucking fantastic movie, for real.
Austin Butler, but Christopher Walken as the Emperor. It's great to see them in these roles.
Paul Atreides is still alive.
No, Paul Atreides must be crushed. Sorry. And once again, like I said with the first film, the atmosphere.
Oh, Paul Atreides is alive. That's crazy. Sorry, that's my awful. I mean, if he's gonna do it, I might as well do it, right?
Is unbelievable, and the way it is shot on IMAX and the sound design, and
that's what I was gonna say, dude. I'm glad I've only seen this movie on IMAX, bro, and like I might fucking do it again.
Music is really an amazing experience. It is an experience. You would be a fool not to see this on IMAX. I actually had 2 early screenings. I could have gone to an earlier one, get this review out earlier, but it wasn't on IMAX. I'm like, no,
so fucking
if I'm going to judge this film appropriately, I need to see it on IMAX, and you do too. You will not see the entire film if you do not see it on IMAX. It's the equivalent of watching a pan and scan movie and a widescreen movie. You're just
I wouldn't go that far. Somebody made a really good video about like this sort of the way people think about aspect ratio now because of IMAX. I forgot who made it, but if I'll post it in my things. But like, yeah, somebody made a good point about this. Is that James Cameron, proved that you can do both. You can frame for a tall aspect ratio and also frame for a wide one. So I wouldn't say that you're like missing out if you don't see it on IMAX. I think that's kind of a snobbish, elitist thing to do. What I am saying though is that if you can do it, if you can fucking watch it on IMAX, watch the motherfucker on IMAX for real.
Missing half of it. Now, of course, you have to wait for Madam Web to be kicked out of theaters because that's the ultimate IMAX experience right now. But once it's gone, you go and see this movie right away.
He said
I got that. Thanks.
I was a don't look up. I'm used to not being liked. This is a movie that takes its time, does not want to be rushed, but at the same time isn't boring. You really feel like you're in this world, you're with these people, and they are interesting, likable people. Timothée Chalamet was good as Paul Atreides. I didn't know how he would be as Muad'Dib. I was pretty convinced he would get the prince part down, but when playing the Messiah, the Chosen One, I didn't know if he was going to be able to pull through with it because he played the prince part just so good, just sort of the kid that's out of his league, knows a little bit what's going on, but is still not in a world he fully understands, but then takes control and adapts and understands it very quickly and becomes a true leader. And he really pulls it off, and he pulls it off in a way that I feel like this character should. He doesn't talk too much. He doesn't have a ton of speeches.
I still feel like he hasn't really changed. It still feels a little surface level to me, his criticism. Like it's very much about it's very much about just the movie, not really talking about like the sort of greater overall aspects of it. But let's let him continue going on here.
Everything he says is short and to the point and direct, but can immediately command authority. But at the same time, you're seeing him learn. A lot of his learning process is done inwardly. He doesn't have to talk about everything he's going through. You can just see it by looking at his face, looking into his eyes, and you see the gears turning. And he doesn't, again, have to say much. And when he does, it really sticks with you. Like, I love the fact that as soon as he gets to the other Fremen, he's looking around. He's seeing some people think he's the chosen one, some think he's not. And he says, we have to convince.
Hot prep question. Name a favorite film of yours that you would say has right-leaning themes. Name a favorite movie of mine Oh wow, that is a great question, Perp. Okay, let's take a look at my letterbox here. Um, fantastic fucking question. Let me see here. Let me pull up my diary here. See some of the, you know, I wouldn't say that it's. I personally would not say that it's right leaning, but a lot of people have said that that the Deer Hunter, and it's weird because just as many fucking people say that it's a conservative, jingoistic, self parody, as there are leftists who think that it's a effective and very emotional like anti war movie. I personally don't think it's either. I think it's like one of those movies that I think is, I don't know. I think you're kind of forcing it if you're trying to force it into a political light. But I guess that's like a good example. But let me see one that I consider to be more right leaning that I enjoy. Let me see. I went to see Arthur the King, the Wahlberg movie too. I didn't even know he was playing Arthur the King. Easily Conan the Barbarian. I haven't actually seen Conan the Barbarian. Maybe Apocalypse Now. Would I call that? Okay, here's the question: would I call it right leaning? Let's put it that way. Um, let's see. Let's see. Uh, 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 God, man, like I know there's got to be one here somewhere. I'm gonna be real with you. If I can't find one, I'm gonna be a little bit disappointed in myself here. Let's see. Um, jeez. No, I didn't like that movie. I did see it, but I didn't like it. Um, let's see. God damn, there's got to be, dude. I'm getting mad at myself here. I've heard arguments for the Dark Knight. See, but I can't call it left wing because at the end of at the very end, it's very critical of back then the very conservative mindset that the ends justify the means when it comes to like fighting against terrorism, you know. I love Dirty Harry as a kid. That is very right leaning. You know, yeah, that's a good example right there. God, is there anything from my childhood that is right leaning that doesn't hold up? Dude, I'm getting a little low key mad at myself here because I feel like, you know, like I feel like I'm very apolitical when it comes to what movies I choose, but I can't prove it. Let me see here. I guess Air, maybe Air, because it's essentially no, I'm stretching it. I'm stretching it. If I'm stretching it, then I'm stretching it, right? Like let me see. Um let's move on to the next page. Uh the Punisher. Oh, okay. Yeah. I like Thomas Jane's The Punisher. Let's go with that one. I actually like Tom Jane's the Punisher. I thought that was a very fun movie. And so I'll just, I'm gonna go with that one. I'm gonna go with that one, little movie perp. Okay. Let's go back here to this review. Invasion USA. I have not seen that one. Yeah, I can't personally. If you like Red Dawn, you are okay. You know what? I'm gonna go just because it's fucking Milius. I'm just gonna go with Apocalypse Now. There you go. I'm gonna go with Apocalypse Now, because it is John Milius. So let's face it, that guy, he's who every conservative doesn't know is like secretly their like father. You know, see that is another one that I really want to talk about. How like God, like Vietnam, man. Okay, I don't want to get into the whole Vietnam bit here, but I am fascinated by Vietnam, especially its relationship to cinema and to filmmaking, and stuff like that. And I think like a really interesting part of it is I actually haven't seen that dude's movies. I haven't seen those that dude. You know what? David Ayer. I'll go with Training Day. There you go. David Ayer's like a little bit on the right. He's like right leaning, and I think his movies air a little bit on the right. I'm gonna go with that one. I think Training Day. Um, let's see. Yeah, no, they dude, man, release the Ayer cut. That's the real director's cut of the DCEU that I want to see. Um, let's see, where was I? Yeah, okay, so let's continue on with Doug Walker's review here. Yeah, no, you know what? I need to see that dude's movies. I forgot his name, but I need to check. I've been meaning, like, every now and then I sit down and say, okay, I'm gonna watch it, but I just haven't gone around to it yet. Let's keep watching.
The non-believers, the naysayers. We have to make them think I'm the chosen one. And his mother's like, so you've given in to believe in this. He's like, oh, no, I don't believe it. Just strategically, this makes more sense. And I love that. That is such a smart move. And it's a move that a character like this, from his background, would understand. And then you see the mixing of these two worlds. They're going to talk about the chosen one, the Messiah, which has been done so many times.
Yeah, the rich kid. I tell people Six Underground is a cut. I haven't seen Six Underground, to be honest. that's Netflix, right? I feel like I have an aversion. I feel like I'm far more likely to watch like a straight to VHS 80s fucking action movie than like a Netflix action movie for some reason. You know, like
times, but I like
something weird, so weirdly like samey and lazy about them. You know,
story that really confronts what you have to hold on to, how much of your humanity you can hold on to, and how much of it you have to give up. And you see him doing this without people realizing he's even doing this. In fact, he actually kind of surprises people in this with some of the choices he makes. Some of the choices are not in the book. There are some changes from the book in this, and I was okay with them. Without going too much into spoilers, there will most likely be another one. There are other books, but this was originally one book that was broken up into two parts. But it's looking very, very likely they're going to go into
man.
Dune Messiah, which I think this guy could knock out of the park. I would love it if he also did Children of Dune, but apparently he has no interest in that. The director just wants to do these three stories. I think he could really, really pull out something phenomenal with Dune Messiah.
All my visions lead to horror.
Because you lose control.
Because I gain it.
I don't even have a joke for that one. I just want to show how really good the writing is. I really like that the Fremen feel like real people. They aren't all just kind of stoic stereotypes.
You know what? I'll say this about Doug Walker. Like to me, in my head, he's still like very basic level film criticism. But like I feel like no matter what, right? Like it's something that I'm dealing with in my welding class, because I only have it once a week, and my entire career is depending on me getting this very particular style of welding down. You know, and I'm only doing it for like 3 hours a week, like, so I only get a very limited amount of time. And I talked to my teacher about it, like, hey man, like, I'm just worried about it. He's like, hey, no, like, listen, just straight up, like, welding, and it's true, like, welding is one of those things where, like, the best thing you can do is to just keep doing it, and you'll get better at it, and it's funny because, like, this whole semester I've been like tripping, like, fuck, am I gonna have enough time? Fuck, am I gonna have enough time? I'm gonna get this down before I finish the semester. But then this last week, dude, like, I just like, you know what, dude, like, I'm gonna just fucking chill out. Hey, Mika, what's up, man? Yeah, but this last week, like, I go in and I go into the booth. I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking keep it mellow. I'm gonna stop fucking questioning myself. I'm gonna trust myself, like I'm doing like stick welding or something, you know. I'm just gonna just do it like like act like you know what you're doing, right? And guys, this last Monday, and I'm not talking about mild steel, okay? I'm talking about stainless steel. If you know, you know. There's differences in the types of metals you use, and the fact that that's what I fucking like finally felt comfortable with was on stainless steel. Like, I'm proud of that. Like, my welds, my TIG welds are finally looking good, and it's because, like, I just felt like I was like, you know what? At this point, I've been doing this long enough that if I'm fucking this up, it's all psychological. So I got out of my fucking head and I nailed that shit, dude. Like, I'm fucking stoked. I feel like I'm actually gonna get this before the semester's over, man. Like, I'm just like, great fucking feeling right there. What were we talking about? The original show movie by canon, or really almost any canon movie. Good. That's the best option. I have the same outlook I have with dog grooming. Don't second guess yourself. Yeah, dude. So much of that shit is psychological. What were we talking about? I feel like I got. What was it? Oh yeah. Oh, okay. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah. Look, like, I feel like. I feel ridiculous. This is such a roundabout statement to make, right? But I feel like, yeah, Doug Walker has been doing this shit for years. been doing this for years, just like I've been welding for years. You know, like and it's just one of those things where like the longer you do something, just like the better you are at it and shit. And I think like even though I still think that, um Doug Walker is a very surface level, film critic and shit. Like he's a very good surface level critic. Um, let's see. Right wing movies. Yeah, let's God, what's another right wing movie that I like? Let me think about this one. Let me think about this one. God, what's a hmm, with conservative politics? Oh, God, it's hard for me to think. It's hard, and it's weird because like I'm not proud of this. Like again, I like to think that when it comes to like the movies that I watch, I'm open minded enough to be apolitical. Oh, the Death Wish series. Okay, all right. I haven't seen a lot of Death Wish movies. Um, Pain and Gain. You know what? I need to. I've been wanting to watch Pain and Gain, bro. Actually, now that I think of it, I've been meaning to watch it specifically because it is so right wing. And it is like Michael Bay trying to do a Coen Brothers, and that's kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, let's where were we here? Yeah, let's get out of the nostalgia critic here. There's another critic that I really want to get to. Who's a really good one? How about Run, Hide, Fight, Made? I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it, to be honest, man. I haven't seen it. You know what? I did read Critical Drinker's book. Me and Mika did. And as much as I think he's a horrible film critic, he is a very serviceable writer. There you go. I read Critical Drinker's first book, and I found it competent. I will say that. What he painted a picture. I knew what was going on. I was able to follow the story. The characters were interesting enough to see. There is a lot of like goofy, kid soldier kind of shit in it for sure, and it is like overall just like a straight to DVD action movie in novel form, but it is a competent movie or a competent book. Basically, it's a novella, but yeah. Let me see. Maybe he used Chat GPT. No, this is like in 2014. It came out like a long time ago. Um, yeah, way back in the day. I think way before he was a critical drinker. And it's weird because one of the people who interviewed him when that book came out was like Feminist First magazine or Female First magazine or something. Yeah, we did. If you want to see a clusterfuck, you should read Shadow of the Conqueror, made by Shadow. Oh, dude. I don't know if I want to go into all that. I feel like Shadiversity has such like twerpy little brother vibes that might actually be like painful to read to get through. And honestly, man, like I've just kind of stopped covering those guys in general. I have like maybe like two more things I might want to do about them, but like yeah, I'm kind of past that at this point. Let's see here. Let's see. Who's a really fucking in depth film critic who God, they're who was the last filmmaker who actually made me like reconsider a film in a totally different light, you know? Uh, Jesus, what's a good one? What is a good one? I know here's the thing, right? Like I know there have been certain film video like video essays and certain reviews that have totally like changed the way that I view a movie for the better. But the thing is, man, that like God, let's you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. I watched Cloud Atlas in January. That movie really blew me away, and there's been a lot of video essays here. Let's see. And let's see this. Yeah, you know what? Like Stories of Old. I know this channel is definitely let's see what yeah, I know I've definitely seen like a lot from this before.
In his novel The Idiot, Dostoevsky made the ambiguous statement, "Beauty will save the world." The quote
No,
comes
I think that's the thing. Critical Drinker has been writing Rambo fucking fan fiction since he was like 4 years old. It feels like when you read that book.
up many in the decades that followed, including novelist and historian Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who in his Nobel lecture in 1970 replied, What sort of a statement is that? For a long time I considered it mere words. How could that be possible? When in bloodthirsty history did beauty ever save anyone from anything? Ennobled, uplifted, yes. But whom has it saved? This, I believe, is the question that lies at the heart of Cloud Atlas, directed by Tom Tykwer and the Wachowskis and based on the book by David Mitchell. Cloud Atlas tells 6 different stories, separated by time and genre, and yet connected by a seemingly thin thread of fate and coincidence as the main characters of each story find inspiration in the stories that preceded theirs to ultimately change their own in a meaningful way. In many ways, it's a story about stories, about the peculiar way in which we can convey a life experience from one individual to another, from one generation to the next. We do this through diaries, letters, literature, films, and in more abstract ways through religion and mythology. Solzhenitsyn, who is referenced in the film more than once, uses the overarching term art to capture what he sees as the only substitute for an experience we ourselves have never lived through. And it is here that he found the essence of Dostoevsky's world-saving beauty and came to understand it not as a careless phrase, but as a prophecy. To really understand the
Dude,
meaning.
this music, this imagery, like what he's saying and shit, like I think this is the peak best like possible outcome of what film criticism has evolved to thanks to YouTube, right? Where what he's doing here feels like its own little short film in a weird way. And maybe that's too highfalutin of a word, a short film, but I think his exploration, his breaking down of it, the way that he's using the score, the way that he's sort of the cadence of his speech and all that. I think it's kind of bringing a cumulative effect where it's just creating a favorable feeling towards the film, and it's sort of helping it because he's talking about the beauty of the film, and you can say. I think it's interesting, right? Because that is sort of part of the art of filmmaking itself, the editing of it, the writing of it, the performance of it. And so he film criticism at this point, and I mean, I don't want to say that I'm doing it as good as this guy, but part of the reason why the Looper versus the Last Jedi video essay took me all week to edit was because I wanted to be very specific about which shots I chose. And that's because, like, even though it is an essay, this is me just using other people's works to have a discussion about something greater. Like, I do try to like make it feel like its own thing, and I think that's an interesting kind of thing you're doing when you're discussing something, is to sort of take something and say, and let's be real here, we are sort of robbing all these moments, all these scenes from the context of the greater film. For all my criticisms of discussing films as sort of like these minute by second things, when you're editing it, that is what you're doing. But I think like what I'm trying to do is I think something that happens with, like, especially movies like Noah or The Last Jedi, they're a little bit messy, is that it's hard to track the thematic through line in between the sheer depth and immensity of the ideas and themes that they're tackling, so when I'm able to take those movies and just sort of like cut from like how this connects in Act 1 to Act 3, I think it sort of brings the artistry of the film that is lost when you're watching it as this sort of grander sort of thing, um, and shines a light on it and clarifies it. And I think there's a lot of discussion to be made about what the effect of that is, but at the same time, I think it helps, man. It helps, and I can't deny that. Hey Ed, see what Chris J. Herman versus Chris Zuckman video where he does this take because Chris is rich, that the best contrast to his taking everything away from film and to do all. I haven't actually seen that video, but like I mean, I got that from Adam Does Movies too, and I just think that's like a lot of it, man. It's a lot of people who are a little bit jealous, um so it doesn't surprise me, sadly, that's sort of his take. But let's continue watching this video.
Of this, we have to dig a little deeper into the themes explored in Cloud Atlas, which author David Mitchell describes as:
one is the interconnectedness of cause and effect, and you think you have your own little life and it runs along its own tracks, especially these days. we think we're islands, but actually we're interconnected archipelagos of islands. Number two, it's about predacity, the way individuals prey on individuals, tribes on tribes, corporations on their host societies, states on the individuals within those.
Also,
states.
let's just be real here. The score to Cloud Atlas is just fucking top notch, amazing.
The mechanics, the electronics of predacity, if I'm allowed to use language like that.
Let's begin with the interconnectedness of cause and effect.
Our lives are not our own. From womb to tomb, we are bound to others, past and present. And by each crime and every kindness, we birth our future.
Cloud Atlas leans heavy on the notion of eternal recurrence, which is often associated with spiritual concepts like reincarnation and karma. However, the filmmakers expressed that although they welcomed spiritual interpretations, they also specifically wanted to explore secular perspectives.
There were days where I was preferring, like, within your, let's say, genetic string that you're actually playing, rather than saying the soul that is connecting your characters. And that there were different words and this different description for the whole idea of eternal recurrence and of what you might call reincarnation, which is a word that we're not afraid of. But at the same time, if you really say it's a movie about reincarnation, we would feel like that's a limitation of perspective.
The interconnectedness of cause and effect is shown in the book by
Disease. Also, if you want to see the art of The Last Jedi, the whole movie was about two different themes, both war and self-identity, which don't meld together that well in that movie. I think The Last Jedi is a very messy movie. I think it's a very ambitious movie, and I think it is a little unwieldy. But I think for me, like I said in the video essay, that was my fourth time watching it, and a lot of things that I didn't like about The Last Jedi. Specifically Canto Bight and the whole Rose, Tico, and Finn subplot. It really rang true. And there's something that I, when I talk about Heaven's Gate with a lot of people, right? They always talk about how every scene goes on for too long. It's such a basic story. It's a lot of these criticisms, right? And it's weird because the first time I watched that movie, I agreed with them on everything. I thought it was too long. I thought it was too simple for how long it was. I thought the characters were too stagnant. I thought some scenes were comically long. And then there's a very famous sequence where the movie literally just stops for a good 10 or 15 minutes and people just dance in a circle. And I'm not lying. That's like a good hour and 45 minutes into this 3 hour and 45-minute movie. The movie just stops for 10 or 15 minutes to show a bunch of people dancing. And that's a famous scene that a lot of people cite to showing how ridiculous it is. But you know what? For me, it wasn't until I understood that scene. It wasn't until I understood what he was trying to say with that, what the point of it and why it was there. Once I understood that, it clicked. And all of a sudden, the rest of the movie made sense. And I think with The Last Jedi, Rose and Finn is that. The reason why The Last Jedi on my fourth watching was the best viewing was because Rose and Finn, don't get me wrong, I still think the big problem with that subplot is that they're supposed to be romantically connected and they have no chemistry. That is a big flaw in that. But outside of that, I think what the movie is doing with that story is really interesting and is the key to understanding the rest of it. So, I mean, look, like I said, man, if you don't like that movie at all, you never want to see it again, fair. But if you want to give it another shot, I recommend watching it and trying to pay attention to how that relates or not, man. I get why people don't like The Last Jedi, but I think it's great.
Motif of a comet-shaped birthmark found on the main characters of each story, suggesting they are the same soul embodying different characters. But in the film they changed this by using the same actors to play different roles, turning the journey of one soul into a story of many. By reusing the same actors, they purposefully alienate the audience from the individual characters to instead encourage them to draw connections between them on a level that transcends their individual stories.
I love this idea that
The Rey and Kylo dynamic made it the most watchable as the new Star Wars. Let's create something new. What's enticing? It is. And again, like, so for the longest time, I always said that The Last Jedi would have been a much better movie if it ended on the cliffhanger of Kylo reaching out to Rey. I thought for the longest time I thought it would be a better movie, but when I watched it for this video essay and I really put it like paid attention to what Ryan Johnson was doing with the battle on Crate, I really think that like the Battle of Crate is sort of the whole point of the movie. And I think everything about it, down to the fact that it seems a little bit superfluous, is very intentional, given what Ryan Johnson is trying to say. When I watch this guy, I always feel like I'm getting told, "Yeah, that's very true." No, he's a great video essayist, in my opinion.
That you can show just at a facial level that the main characters in the film are being reincarnated again and again in different time zones. So what you get is a sort of well, the word is actually matrix, a matrix of pilgrims' progresses, of characters on ethical journeys through time, just through the faces of the actors.
Another way the filmmakers expanded on the theme of interconnectedness is by changing the narrative structure of the original novel. After a brief prologue, the 6 storylines are, somewhat similarly to the novel, briefly introduced in chronological order. But then there's a pivotal moment where that structure is broken.
There's a very particular moment where once the field opens up to like
it would be better if they focus exclusively on self-identity or about the war, but having both made it a little too clunky. Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things, and I've said, I've talked about this in a previous live stream, so I'm not going to get too much into it here. But again, Rich Evans from Red Letter Media is right. Star Wars was a fluke. Star Wars, again, the Sick of Star Wars podcast on Laser Time's Patreon. They go into this, like, the period between episode 4 and 5 was fucking George Lucas just capitalizing on what he made, and making like these whack ass TV shows, all this stuff. And the only reason why Star Wars is why it is today is because Irvin Kershner was a good director. That's it. I genuinely think that yeah, it's George Lucas' baby, but it's a baby that was best served in a communal family, not in a nuclear family, if that makes any sense.
Between the sequences without any order anymore, but with an internal
connectedness. Yeah, and Irvin Kershner and Lawrence Kasdan. And a lot of people, film is a collaborative fucking process. That's the thing about film criticism that's tricky too, right? Is because film criticism has influenced the way that people like view how films are made, right? Because we use the auteur theory in film criticism as a shorthand, right? To sort of have a person to refer to as the person we're criticizing, the director. But what happens is that it creates this idea, like, there's a lot of people that think the director is the guy who shoots the movie. There's a lot of people that think that the director writes the scripts every time. I mean, they sometimes do. But like, it's all because of the way that auteur theory has conditioned the way we talk about movies as a director's artistic work. The reality is that, like, while useful as a shorthand, it's just not how movies work. Movies are a group project. Again, like I always say, even on my little, tiny little movies, like, actors contributed lines. They helped me like conceptualize with scenes. They helped me edit the movies in some cases, like, and my vision gets mixed with theirs, and it's great. That's all part of the process. What were we getting at here? I forgot what we were getting at. Yeah, there you go. And I think that's what I was getting at last week with the sort of mythology of Star Wars, is that everybody thinks that it was just George Lucas, and it's not. It was George Lucas, Irvin Kershner, Marcia Lucas, Richard Marquand, all, everybody. Frank Oz, even, I'm sure. You guys are wrong. It just happened before still. If anything gets to be a franchise, I like it to be Star Wars, where everyone has something. Yeah, I think that's where it's headed too, I think that's why, like, they're trying. Well, I mean, I think also they don't know what the fuck to do, because, like, Star Wars fans, you just can't make them happy. Even if you give them what they want, they're gonna be mad, But also, I think they just don't really know what to do with that franchise,
the internal flow that seems to, that in our opinion even does make more sense than any other structure could have made for a movie, which is in the beginning of Reel 3, where Jim Sturgis as Chang meets Sonmi for the first time.
I know you are.
Like how he referred to it to Reel 3.
451.
And they have this moment, and you can stay with what you're used to, or you can go elsewhere and join us. And we felt like, okay, you've had 40 minutes to get prepared for it, and now you should take that choice.
You can remain here.
Very
or
Matrixy, right?
being discovered. Or you can come with me.
Again, the distinctive qualities of film are used to further diffuse the boundaries between each story and emphasize their interconnectedness, leading to a structure where stories are intercut based on musical flow, visual connections, and shared emotional states. The purpose of all this is to show, regardless of your spiritual or religious beliefs, the deeply intricate ways in which our actions impact the world around us, captured into words in Sonmi's revelation.
We talked about it a lot, this Jose Saramago line that we reference.
The nature of our immortal lives is in the consequences of our words and deeds that go on apportioning themselves throughout all time.
This is a really beautiful secular way of expressing karma or reincarnation.
This brings us to the second theme of Cloud Atlas, which reveals the implications of this interconnectedness of cause and effect, and brings us closer to answering the opening question of how beauty will save the world.
There is only one rule that binds all people. One governing principle that defines every relationship on God's green earth.
Predacity is the main source of conflict in Cloud Atlas. It is reflected in the stories of each of the characters as they struggle against greed, power, malevolence, and all the other qualities that lead to victors and victims, oppressors and oppressed. Reflected.
I think that's another thing too, that it's hard for me to say a whole lot here because like it's just so engaging to watch, you know. Let's see. There are 7 different types of Star Wars fans: comics fans, movie fans, prequels fans, kids, sequel fans, normies, and film critics. No way to satisfy all. No, but I think Star Wars is. It used to just be movies, and now it's like TV. It's like TV too, and I think like every story is sort of taking different emotional, and thematic risks. You know. And you know, I was gonna finish watching this video, but honestly, like I'm just more captivated by it than like being able to finish it here or to say anything about it. So I'm just gonna leave that there, and that is gonna be it for today's stream, you guys. Thank you guys all very much in the chat for stopping by and saying hi. Make sure you hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you guys haven't seen the What Disney Takes Away, Looper versus The Last Jedi, also said, yeah, there you go. So like 8. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen the Looper and Last Jedi What Disney Takes Away video, you know, check it out if that sounds interesting to you. I'd like to hear what you guys thought about it. Thank you very much, Theo, and thank you very much for being here. And what else? The next one is gonna be on David Lowery, the guy who made The Green Knight. He also made Pete's Dragon. And that's probably gonna be coming out next month. I have another really fun video next month, but that's gonna be a surprise one. Gonna be excited for that one. And thank you guys very much. Thank you so much for saying that. And again, thanks for stopping by. As always, I've been Ed. You guys have been awesome. Take care. Oh.